Chapter 135. Mu Jinghong killed a Heaven Wheel foundational cultivator. The entire Tianlin Mountain was once again silent. The black-robed Mu Jinghong pointed his sword at Elder Qin. He could kill a core formation cultivator at any time. He Shanhong hovered in the air with blood dripping from his mouth. At the same time, his eagle eyes scanned the surroundings. Who dared to speak of killing? Who wasn't afraid of death? Plus, no one in the entire Tianlin Mountain dared to speak up. Who dared to go against Mu Jinghong? That was a demoness in black. Just now, Sumo killed Zhong Wukuan and the entire Tianlin Mountain condemned her. But now, Mu Jinghong killed a middle-stage foundational cultivator without blinking an eye. No one dared to speak up. This was power. Mu Jinghong's thunderous methods shocked everyone. Elder Du and the others were stunned. Who could guarantee what Mu Jinghong would do? This woman was too cold and too crazy. If she dared to kill a foundational cultivator, then she dared to kill a core formation cultivator. She was not the Windmill Children. She seemed to have no scruples. Stunning white bones for 3,000 years. Who didn't know of Mu Jinghong's ruthlessness? The entire Tianlin Mountain was dead silent. Ha ha! Amidst the silence, a burst of laughter was heard. That laughter reverberated throughout the entire Sky Wheel Mountain, sounding very natural and unrestrained. It was the aura of a peak late-stage core formation cultivator, only one step away from the nascent soul realm. Tianluan's master, Yang Tianxiao. Who among the 5 wheels would become the next nascent soul cultivator? Then, it had to be Yang Tianxiao. He was widely recognized by the entire 5 wheels as the cultivator closest to the nascent soul realm. However, Tianluan's master was elusive. The disciples of the Tianlin Mountain rarely saw him. The last time he showed up was when he listened to the ancestral spirit peak. This time, Yang Tianxiao only transmitted his voice and didn't show himself. Perhaps this was not worthy of Yang Tianxiao showing up. However, at that moment, all the Tianluan disciples knelt on the ground. Even the 3 completion elders had to bow slightly to show their respect. However, Qin Huqing was in an awkward situation. He couldn't move because Mu Jinghong's sword was right between his eyebrows. Hearing Yang Tianxiao's voice, Mu Jinghong didn't move. He had no intention of sheathing the black sword in his hand. "Junior Sister Mu, don't be angry." Yang Tianxiao's voice sounded. Just now, Junior Sister Mu's words are reasonable. Zhong Wukuan indeed had the intention to kill Sumo. He provoked them first, but was killed later. My skills are inferior, so I have nothing to say. Elder Qin, you should restrain your disciple more in the future. Do not stir up trouble. However, a country had its laws, and a family had its rules. Although Sumo's crime was not punishable by death, it was still unforgivable. Otherwise, wouldn't my 5 wheels become an Azura retreat ground in the future? Mu Jinghong raised her eyebrows. Sumo killed a disciple of my Tianlun sect. Naturally, we can't let the Windwheels sect take her away. Second senior brother Du Shusheng could not help but sneer when he heard Yang Tianxiao's words. He already knew what Yang Tianxiao was going to say next. Junior Martial Sister Mu, you have a master-servant agreement with Sumo. He's in the wrong this time, and you can't absolve yourself from the blame. Yang Tianxiao's words seemed to be harsh. Mu Jinghong listened without changing her expression. Junior Martial Sister Mu, you are a Tianluan sect disciple. Therefore, you will bring Sumo back to the graceful cliff to repent and prove the might of the Tianlun sect. Sumo must not return to the Windwheel sect within 100 days. If anything goes wrong, you will be held responsible. Junior Martial Sister Mu, do you agree? Repent, and must not return to the Windwheel sect within 100 days? Mu Jinghong did not know what Yang Tianxiao was planning, but she only wanted to bring Sumo back to the cave residence. She was free to arrange everything else. Therefore, Mu Jinghong did not hesitate. At this moment, she sheathed her black sword. The sword seemed to have melted into Mu Jinghong's arm. Elder Qin Huqing secretly heaved a sigh of relief. His forehead was already covered in cold sweat. His life could be considered to be saved. Chief is wise. I will listen to Chief's arrangements. Mu Jinghong bowed, slightly as a form of courtesy. Although Yang Tianxiao's handling of the matter seemed lenient, she managed to preserve the reputation of the Tianlun sect. After all, Mu Jinghong was a Tianlun sect disciple. Very good. Junior Martial Sister Mu, you have worked hard. Sumo is stubborn and mischievous. She still needs your supervision and guidance. If she commits another crime, I will not let her off lightly, Yang Tianxiao said with a smile. Rest assured, Chief, I will definitely restrain her. Good. I hope Junior Martial Sister Mu will not disappoint the Tianlun sect. Yang Tianxiao's voice was accompanied by a faint laughter as it gradually dissipated. In fact, Yang Tianxiao's expression was cold in the cave residence. The black chess piece in his hand had already been crushed by him. Mu Jinghong's strength had exceeded her expectations. Although she was prepared to let Mu Jinghong take Sumo away, she did not expect the Tianlun sect to be in such a difficult situation. Killing the Foundation establishment cultivator on the Tianlun mountain. Did Mu Jinghong think that he was the chief of the Tianlun sect? However, Yang Tianxiao did not want to get rid of Mu Jinghong, or rather, she still had some misgivings about Mu Jinghong. Sumo's matter was decided by the chief of the Tianlun sect just like that. However, he and Mu Jinghong seemed to have overlooked a problem. The Tianlun sect had agreed, but they still needed the approval of the Tianlun sect to take Sumo away. This was because Sumo was the disciple of the Tianlun sect. Sumo, follow me. Mu Jinghong naturally turned around and called out to Sumo. Huh? Sumo was slightly stunned. The turn of events seemed to be a little sudden. However, did she really want to go with Mu Jinghong? In fact, deep down in her heart, Sumo did not reject going with Mu Jinghong. Originally, he had planned to keep the appointment 3 days later. Now he was just going back. He was well aware of what Mu Jinghong had done just now. However, he knew that he had to listen to his second senior brother and seventh senior sister. Sumo, what are you hesitating for? Didn't you hear what I said? Mu Jinghong's face darkened. Huh? Seventh senior sister laughed. Senior Martial Sister Mu, thank you for speaking up for justice. However, it's up to the Tianlun sect to decide whether my junior martial brother will go with you. Oh, when Mu Jinghong heard Bai Yifeng's words, he could not help but sneer at Sumo. Sumo, are your seventh senior sister's words divine? This sentence sounded extremely familiar to Sumo, because she had just heard it not long ago. Others might not know, but Sumo naturally knew that there was a hint of jealousy in it. Huh? Sumo was stunned again. Sumo, have you forgotten the oath of being a servant? Mu Jinghong was furious when he saw Sumo's hesitation, and his expression became colder. Senior Martial Sister Mu, Sumo did not dare to forget. However, I am now in the Tianlun sect. Senior brothers and sisters, I would like to hear second senior brother's opinion first. Sumo was smart enough to not mention seventh senior sister, but second senior brother. This made Mu Jinghong feel slightly better. Mu Jinghong looked at Scholar Du. What did Mr. Second say? Mu Jinghong was still polite to Scholar Du. Fairy Mu, you're too polite. Scholar Du smiled faintly. Everything you said just now was reasonable. My junior martial brother does not have a master and is your servant. Now, he is in the wrong. It is reasonable for you to bring him back to the cave residence to discipline him. However, Chapter 136. Scholar Du's tone paused slightly, and Mu Jinghong knew that there was more to it. But what? Mu Jinghong asked. However, our Windwheel faction is still worried about little junior brother's safety. Second senior brother, Du Shuxing said. I'm here, and Sumo is here. Mu Jinghong was straightforward. Oh, Du Shuxing didn't expect Mu Jinghong to answer so readily. He couldn't help but stare at Mu Jinghong in surprise. Windmill's second senior apprentice brother was good at scheming and was Windmill's brains. Some of the schemes of the chief of the Sky Wheel sect, Yang Tianxiao, were all within his calculations. However, Scholar Du really couldn't see through Mu Jinghong. He didn't know what Mu Jinghong wanted. Du Shuxing was puzzled by Mu Jinghong's attitude towards Sumo. Therefore, he could only take a gamble on Mu Jinghong. Mr. Second, Sumo has already failed twice. You should understand what this means. Mu Jinghong did not want to waste his breath and directly threw out the key question. Of course. Scholar Du did not beat around the bush and said seriously, could it be that Fairy Mu really has a way? Can you guarantee success? Whether we succeed or not, we can only try. Mu Jinghong said, does Windmill have any other choice? Hee hee. Scholar Du laughed dryly and declined to comment. There was only one way to build a foundation, the wind wheel. However, the price was too high. Therefore, facing the other possibility, Windmill had no other choice. Second senior brother, they want to make little senior brother face the wall for 100 days? Then, Seventh Apprentice Sister by Yi Feng quietly reminded second apprentice brother about Yang Tianxiao's 100 days of facing the wall. However, Scholar Du waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to say anything more. All right, Scholar Du nodded and said, Fairy Mu, our Windwheel faction believes in you. Then, Du Shusheng came over and patted Sumo's shoulder. Little junior brother, you should leave with Fairy Mu. Be careful. Just as Sumo was about to say something, she heard second senior brother's private voice transmission. Little junior brother, whether you reach Foundation Establishment or not, you'll definitely be able to reach Foundation Establishment. He had to return to the Windwheel Mountain within 3 months. Don't listen to that 100-day promise. Remember, you must come within 3 months. Your fourth senior brother wants to see you. Second senior brother Du Shusheng took a deep look at Sumo. Fourth senior brother wants to see me? Sumo was shocked. This was because he had never seen fourth senior brother before. Within 5 wheels, it was rumored that the fourth son of Windmill had died a long time ago. Second senior brother, don't worry. I'll remember that. I'll be careful, Sumo replied. Little junior brother, take care. Third senior brother also exhorted. Junior brother, this is for you. Seventh senior sister pulled Sumo over and took out a storage bag from her bosom. There are some things inside that we gave you. It might be useful if you kept it. You must remember your second senior brother's words. Be careful. Sumo understood that seventh senior sister probably knew what second senior brother had said, so she quickly took the storage bag and put it away. At the same time, Sumo felt a little upset. The senior brothers and sisters of Windmill were still worried about his safety. The storage bag was very heavy. That concern was enough to comfort him for a lifetime. Little junior brother, you must be careful. She might really molest you, Han Tian suddenly said in a silly tone. Han Tian's words made Sumo not know whether to laugh or cry, but he knew that Han Tian was sincere. Eighth senior brother, don't worry. Sumo hugged Han Tian's waist. Is it okay? Mu Jinghong watched as the people of Windmill bid farewell to Sumo and said coldly, it's just reflection for 100 days at the graceful cliff. It's not a separation of life and death. Ha! Du Shusheng laughed. Little junior brother, leave with Fairy Mu. Second senior brother, what about you guys? Sumo said, if we really want to leave, who can stop us? Du Shusheng said. Sumo thought about it and agreed. If he left, he would take away the main conflict. Thus, he walked to Mu Jinghong. Thank you, senior sister Mu. Sumo bowed respectfully to Mu Jinghong. Mu Jinghong's expression was cold, and he was angry. He was already dissatisfied with Sumo's dilly-dallying. Moreover, Sumo did not act like a lecher at all. Instead, she pretended to be respectful. Did she forget what she said to him just now? Let's go. Mu Jinghong did not look happy. Her figure moved, and she flew away on the wind. Su Imo cupped his hands in greeting to his senior brothers and sisters and hurriedly caught up with the wind. On Sky Wheel Mountain, only the windmill philosophers, the 3 elders of the Sky Wheel lineage, and many disciples were left. The Windwheel children looked at each other and couldn't help but smile faintly. 3 elders, can you remove the formation and let us go? Du Shusheng cupped his hands at the 3 elders politely. However, he was really being polite. This was because they could totally break out. Elder Du could only smile bitterly. Just now, the Skywell Master did not say that the windmill philosophers should stay. So why should they? He reckoned that the Master was also very dissatisfied with the 4 of them being defeated. Mr. Second, please give us the medicine. Elder Du did not dare to be careless anymore. Old Third, second senior brother said, What do you think? Hee hee. Third senior brother, Hua, K laughed. 3 elders. As long as you don't use your spirit chi recklessly, the poison in flowing cloud incense will be detoxified in 2 hours. This bottle of pills will be given to Elder Fu. 1 pill every 3 days. His cultivation will be restored after a year, but he will never be able to advance. With that, Hua Ke waved his hand, and the bottle of pills fell into Elder Yun's hand. 1 pill every 3 days, and one's cultivation will be restored after a year? This was something that they did not even dare to think about before. They all thought that Elder Fu's cultivation would be crippled. I thank Mr. Third on behalf of Elder Fu. Elder Yun Mutian said. Now, the windmill philosophers were being addressed as Mr. Third senior brother opened his sleepy eyes and nodded slightly. What happened today was a misunderstanding, Du Shusheng said with a smile. The windmill lineage has done something wrong. I hope that the elders can forgive me. Not all. Not at all. Elder Du quickly found a way out of the situation. A misunderstanding. We didn't ask for the reason and mobilized so many people. We've made a fool of ourselves. Ha ha ha. Everyone laughed at each other as if the dark clouds in the sky had dispersed. From the looks of it, this was an outcome that both sides could accept. However, the Heavenwell disciples had mixed feelings. That was because the laughter was full of sarcasm. Strength determined everything. This was an unchanging truth since ancient times. With a wave of Elder Du's hand, the great chaos array dispersed. The windmill philosophers bowed to the 3 elders of the Heavenwheel lineage and left. They watched as the windmill philosophers left. Elder Du let out a long sigh and waved his hand, indicating for all the disciples to disperse. In this battle, the windmill lineage had shown its might. They were the first among the 4 wheels to dare to go head-on against the Heavenwheel lineage. As for the Heavenwheel lineage, it was tantamount to a heavy slap in the face. Everything in the 5 wheels was quietly changing. Without mentioning anything else, they only talked about sumo. Along the way, Mu Jinghong brought sumo back to the cave abode at Graceful Cliff. At this time, it was already dusk. Sumo felt inexplicably nervous along the way. When they arrived at the cave abode, Mu Jinghong's expression did not improve at all. Sit anywhere. Mu Jinghong then meditated on a stone bed not far away, completely ignoring Sumo. Sumo sat awkwardly on a stone bench in the corner. Chapter 137. Mu Jinghong did not speak, and neither did Sumo. It was fine for a while, but after a full 6 hours, Su Mo felt incomparably awkward. It should be midnight outside the cave by now, right? Could it be that senior sister Mu really wanted him to reflect on his mistakes? It was easy to reflect on his mistakes. Sumo only needed to turn around, and he would be facing the wall. Moreover, there must be a secondary cave in Mu Jinghong's cave abode. He could just randomly pick one. However, he did not dare to move without Mu Jinghong's permission. However, Sumo knew that Mu Jinghong had no intention of punishing him. This woman is so fickle. She must be dissatisfied with me when I fell in love with Windmill and the others just now. Sumo criticized in his mind. Thus, Sumo was bored and fixed his gaze on the painting again. White mountain, vast sea, lotus. That kind of vastness, that kind of holiness and transcendence made Sumo's heart yearn for it. In fact, in Sumo's subconscious, there was still the shadow that Lao Shuantu had planted in him back then. He had yet to meet that kind of immortal who could fly in the sky and burrow into the earth. Today, Sumo's world was filled with mutual deception and life and death struggles. There seemed to be a huge difference between a cultivator and an immortal. Was the world in the painting a boundless, immortal realm? Sumo could not help but ask in his heart. There were also withered trees, white bones, and fallen flowers in the painting. The combination of these 3 gave Sumo a different feeling. It was a kind of aura of death that assaulted her. The fallen flower fell on the shoulder of the man in black, and it was poignant and blood-red. There was a kind of endless sorrow in it. The man stood on white bones and faced the sea. He must be a person with a story. Perhaps it was a soul-stirring, touching, and poignant story. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, nothingness to nothingness, nothingness to nothingness. 10,000 years of admiring the world of mortals, a lifetime of white bones. Sumo silently read the inscription on the painting again. That inscription contained endless frustration and helplessness. Who knows? Who can understand the sorrow of eternity? 10,000 years of admiring the world of mortals, a lifetime of white bones. Sumo's heart suddenly stirred. Hongchun. He suddenly remembered the ancient fan and the pendant in his arms. Didn't he name the ancient fan Hongchun because of the word Hongchun that appeared and disappeared in the pendant? The matter of the soul storage altar was another of Sumo's secrets. Even Mu Jinghong didn't know. Immortal, immortal bone, immortal soul, immortal reincarnation, immortal heart. The heavens are endless, and the world of mortals is only for you. Sumo still remembered the poem inscribed on the soul storage altar. Hongchun, was all of this just a coincidence? And what exactly was the world of mortals? Sumo looked at the painting and pondered. Gradually, he suddenly felt the painting come to life. He did not know if he had walked into the painting or if the painting had fused into his mind. Suddenly, he felt the world around him change. Hua, hua, it was the sound of the sea. Sumo was at a loss, because in front of him was really the vast sea. It was the sea in the painting. In the distance, there was a misty white mountain. The mist was vast and immortal. The sea rushed ashore, splashing. The air was filled with the fragrance of lotus flowers, intoxicating. Everything was like in the painting. Immortal realm. Sumo took a deep breath. He felt the spiritual energy here was extremely abundant. Even the cave abode in the soul-storing altar couldn't compare to it. Was this really an immortal realm? Sumo was a little dazed. Crack. But at this time, when Sumo took a step forward, there was a crisp sound under his feet. He looked down and found that he had crushed a skull. Below his feet, there were white bones. But these bones were not like the ones he saw in Silent Death Valley that emitted a faint white light. Instead, they carried the aura of death and desolation. These bones seemed even older than the ones in Silent Death Valley, because they no longer had any immortal energy. White bones. What about the withered tree? Sumo turned his head to the side and saw the withered tree. It had iron horns and silver branches, bold and beautiful. The withered tree had stood here for tens of thousands of years. It was as if it was cast from copper. Its roots were embedded in the white bones. There was no vitality in this tree, but no one dared to say that it was dead. Is this an ancient plum tree? Sumo asked himself, but he did not dare to be sure. But that tree really looked like a plum tree that had grown for tens of thousands of years. But what about the man in black in the painting? You're finally here. Just as Sumo was wondering, a man's voice came from a void. Then, fluttering, Sumo saw the man in black standing under the withered tree. But that man's back was facing him. On his shoulder, there was a flower petal that looked like blood. Who are you? Sumo asked. Who am I? And who are you? The man in black did not turn around, but he smiled lightly and said in a relaxed tone, My name is Sumo, 5 Wheels disciple. Sumo replied, Sumo? Hee. The man in black seemed to be pondering. I have never heard of 5 Wheels. Which world? Which world? Sumo was stunned, then said, Bone Continent 5 Wheels belongs to the Pure Land world. Pure Land world, good name. The man in black sighed, but how can there be bones in the Pure Land world? It would be great if there was a pure land within the infinite worlds. The man in black's words were a bit strange. Who are you? Sumo asked again. At this time, the man in black slowly said, I define myself as a person who wants to cross the sea. A person who wants to cross the sea? Sumo couldn't help but look at the vast sea. Do you see that white mountain? The man in black asked. His long hair was spread out, and at this time there was wind gently blowing, very elegant. I see it, Sumo said. That is the place I want to go. The man in black said, Unfortunately, there is no boat on the sea. Is that so? Sumo didn't know why he said that. Hee, that's right. The black-clothed, long-haired man sighed softly, and then said with a smile, The ferry has long since left. But what? Sumo asked. But do you see those lotus flowers? The man in black said. I see them. Sumo answered. One flower, one world, one leaf, one universe. The man in black chuckled. Actually, I can step on a lotus to cross the sea and go straight to the White Mountain. Oh, then what are you waiting for? Sumo didn't understand. What am I waiting for? The man in black chuckled again. Of course I am waiting for what I need. Otherwise, I can't step on the lotus to cross the sea. What are you waiting for? Sumo asked again. At this time, the man in black finally turned around. However, his turn was very slow, as if it took countless years to turn around. At this moment, the entire heaven and earth seemed to be waiting for him to turn around. Only the sound of the sea waves. Other than that, there was no other sound. The heaven and earth were born for the monarch in an instant. The black-clothed, long-haired man finally turned around. At this moment, Sumo was stunned. The reason for that was because that black-clothed, long-haired man actually possessed an exceptionally beautiful face. Handsome and bewitching, beautiful like a demon, demonic like a demon. It was a face that could amaze all worlds. In front of other men, even women would have to admit their inferiority. I am waiting for the world of mortals. I am waiting for reincarnation. The man in black smiled at Sumo. It was a smile that could topple worlds. Boom! Hua! Dong dong! Dong dong! Dong! At this moment, Sumo felt the world was spinning as if she fell into the sea. Chapter 138. Thump, 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 thump. It was not Sumo's first time hearing that sound. However, every time it happened, Sumo did not have a good time. The sea, the white mountain, the withered tree, the man in black. They all disappeared after the sound that sounded like a war drum appeared. It was like an illusion. It suddenly appeared, then collapsed and dissipated at a certain moment. However, Sumo did not come out of the illusion. He felt like he had fallen into the sea. He could not see or breathe. All his spells seemed to have lost their effectiveness. What happened to his LV9 chi, refining spiritual power? Where was his immortality? Sinking, sinking, sinking. Sumo wanted to shout, but he could not make a sound. He could only feel that he was surrounded by water. He was sinking bit by bit like a rock. He wanted to grab something, but there was nothing to grab. His hands did not seem to listen to him either. Immortal, immortal bone, immortal soul, immortal reincarnation, immortal heart. Only for you in the world of mortals. 10,000 years of admiring the world of mortals, a lifetime of white bones. I am someone who wants to cross the sea. I am waiting for the world of mortals. I am waiting for reincarnation. Little Su-I old Xintian was right. Are there immortals? Ha! O-M. Ma. Ah. M-M. Me. At that moment, there seemed to be countless voices in Sumo's mind. They were chaotic and unusually noisy. The voices were like the realm of gods, but also like the voice of demons. Sumo's mind was about to explode. However, he could not control it all. It felt like he had fallen into an endless nightmare. The light around him gradually dimmed. Sumo was about to lose all his senses. Am I going to die? Sumo asked in his mind. Senior Sister Mu. It seemed to be Sumo's last call. However, he did not know if he had really shouted it out. After that, Sumo did not know anything else. In fact, in the cave abode at Graceful Cliff, Sumo was just standing in front of the painting in a daze. Nothing happened. She was drowsy and restless. After an unknown period of time, Sumo finally woke up again. He heard someone calling out to him. Sumo, wake up! Sumo, wake up! It was Mu Jinghong's voice. Sumo struggled to open her eyes. At this moment, he still felt dizzy and his chest was stuffy. However, he returned to the real world. Sumo's cultivation was still there. The unwithering chi in his Dan, Si was also operating normally. However, at this time, Sumo's face was extremely pale. His head was heavy. Sumo, you're finally awake. Mu Jinghong's voice carried a trace of rare joy. Senior Sister Mu, what's going on? Sumo asked with a frown. He still couldn't see clearly. At this moment, he realized that he was lying on a stone bed. You've fallen into an illusion, Mu Jinghong said. You can't keep staring at the painting in my cave abode. If I hadn't discovered earlier, you would have fallen into depravity in my sea of consciousness. fall into depravity? What will happen? Sumo asked. When the sea of consciousness sinks, you will lose yourself and fall into the demonic path, Mu Jinghong explained. Fall into the demonic path. What kind of painting is that? Why can it make people hallucinate? Sumo said weakly. At the same time, she glanced at the painting again. However, this time, she did not dare to stop. There was no change in the painting at all. Everything that had happened just now had actually happened in Sumo's imagination. However, why would Sumo have such an illusion? Sumo did not know either. It's just an ancient painting. Don't ask so many questions. Just don't look at it anymore. Mu Jinghong did not say anything else. Instead, he waved his hand and covered the painting with a layer of profound light. This way, Sumo could not see the painting anymore. Ancient painting? Sumo was suspicious. Previously, didn't senior sister Mu say that the man in the painting was an old friend? How did it become an ancient painting now? The old friend in the ancient painting? This did not seem to make sense. However, it was obvious that Mu Jinghong did not want to talk about the painting. Since that was the case, Sumo did not ask any more questions. You've been unconscious for a day and a night, Mu Jinghong said. However, it's good that you're awake. I'll go get you something to eat. After a simple rest, you should be fine. Rest in that cave later. Mu Jinghong pointed to the cave beside him. All right. Thank you, senior sister Mu. Sumo replied. Soon, Mu Jinghong brought over a big bowl of exquisite porridge. Sumo did feel a little empty in her stomach. The porridge was fragrant and sweet, full of spiritual energy. Thus, Sumo did not stand on ceremony and ate everything. Since Sumo had just woken up, Mu Jinghong did not say much. After eating, Sumo felt more energetic and wanted to go to the cave beside her. There was a stone bed inside to meditate. Originally, they had agreed to leave 3 days later. However, the situation had changed, and Sumo did not know what Mu Jinghong would arrange. Just as Sumo was pondering, Mu Jinghong spoke. Sumo, meditate for 2 days. We'll leave for Silent Death Valley according to our original agreement. Senior Sister Mu, didn't Chief Yang ask me to face the wall for 100 days? How can I get out of Graceful Cliff? Sumo asked. I've arranged everything. Mu Jinghong said, you just need to meditate for these 2 days. We have to go to Silent Death Valley. No one could stop us. All right. Sumo nodded. Of course, he hoped so. The battle at Skywheel Mountain was obviously a one-sided battle. If Sumo was a peerless expert, there would be no need for the Windwheel lineage or Mu Jinghong to take action. After the two agreed, Sumo went to the cave residence to meditate. She was under an illusion, and her sea of consciousness almost sank. However, it was like a nightmare, and she was fine after she woke up. Although Sumo was also pondering over everything that had happened in the illusory realm, reaching Foundation establishment was the most important thing for him at the moment. After entering the cave residence, Sumo sat cross-legged. She used the everlasting technique to adjust her body and mind. After the battle at Skywheel Mountain, everything returned to silence. Mu Jinghong brought Sumo back to Graceful Cliff to reflect on her mistakes. Of course, there were people monitoring Skywheel Mountain. However, Sumo definitely did not leave Graceful Cliff. There was no movement on Skywheel Mountain. Earthwheel and Earthwheel. Injongmo, the chief of Earthwheel, frowned. If Sumo was really reflecting on her mistakes at Graceful Cliff, she would definitely not be able to get back the soul gathering pearl that she wanted. In fact, he did not know that Sumo had already given the soul gathering pearl to 7th Senior. Sumo did not have any soul gathering pearl on her. However, Injongmo did not know. He was even more pressed for time than 4th Senior of Windwheel. This was because the ancestor under the cave only gave him 27 days. Now, there were only 25 days left. Originally, he did not care about the Windwheel lineage. That day, if Mu Jinghong had not pretended to be injured and returned from Windwheel Mountain, he would have sent people to attack Windwheel. Originally, when Sumo failed to build her foundation, it was the best opportunity for Injongmo. However, the battle at Skywheel Mountain completely changed the situation. The combat power of Windwheel was extraordinary. And Graceful Cliff was a place of life and death. Injomo's eyes flashed coldly. He had to change his strategy. Chapter 139. In the blink of an eye, it was the third day. In the past 2 days, Sumo had been regulating his breath and was feeling refreshed. In the past 2 days, he even opened the storage pouch that 7th senior sister secretly gave him. There was really everything in the storage pouch. Elixirs, magic artifacts, talismans, and many other things. There was even food specially prepared for Hung Hung. Sumo was dumbfounded. Who said Windwheel was poor? It was all an illusion. When Sumo first joined Windwheel, she really thought that Windwheel was poor. Now, it seemed that Windwheel was definitely the first choice in 5 Wheels. There were few people, but there were many things. His senior brothers all had their own unique skills, and they hid their strength well. Second senior brother was actually at the peak of the middle stage of core formation realm. What about eldest senior brother? Also, what was going on with fourth senior brother that she had not seen? Sumo was nervous and excited at the same time. Entering Windwheel was definitely worth it. However, in Mu Jinghong's cave, it was not convenient for Sumo to organize the things one by one and could only summarize them. There were a few special elixirs and talismans that Sumo had memorized. Right now, he had probably just lit the lamp. Sumo. Mu Jinghong called out to Sumo. Senior Sister Mu. Sumo hurriedly answered and walked out. Mu Jinghong was standing in the middle of the cave. Let's get ready to go. Senior Sister Mu, are we sneaking out at night? Sumo asked. Sneaking out at night? Mu Jinghong looked at Sumo as if she was an idiot. Can the night block the divine sense of a core formation realm cultivator? Now, there are at least 2 core formation realm cultivators guarding Graceful Cliff. Even if I leave the cave, I will be discovered by them immediately, let alone you. Sumo was rather embarrassed. Senior Sister Mu, what should we do? Of course I have a way, Mu Jinghong said. But before we leave, I have to tell you something. Senior Sister Mu, please speak. Sumo felt that Mu Jinghong was very serious. This trip to Silent Death Valley will be full of twists and turns. This is because we will be discovered the moment we leave the 5 Paths immortal domain. And once there are pursuers, you can head straight for Silent Death Valley. As long as you can enter Silent Death Valley, it is a success. On the White Bone continent, there was probably no one who dared to enter Silent Death Valley. Therefore, Silent Death Valley is the safest place for you. Do you understand? Mu Jinghong asked. I understand, Sumo replied. But, Senior Sister Mu, you know buts. Mu Jinghong interrupted Sumo. Sumo, if you weren't involved, I could handle everything else. Understand? Ugh, understood. Sumo could only nod awkwardly again. Mu Jinghong's words were a slap to the face. It was obvious that he was a burden. All right. Mu Jinghong didn't care if Sumo felt awkward or not. Mu Jinghong formed a seal with his hands. Traces of faint purple light actually appeared on her body. Black clothes, purple light, very mysterious. Sealing formation. Open. After forming the seal, Mu Jinghong knelt down on one knee and pressed down on the ground. Whoosh! Instantly, the purple light spread like a deep pool. The fluctuation of the profound light was extremely beautiful. That scene caused Sumo to be dumbfounded. An extremely special teleportation formation had appeared in this Graceful Cliff cave abode. The entire ground of the cave abode sparkled with purple light, and runes flashed. No wonder Mu Jinghong was so confident. This formation leads directly to the southernmost 5 Paths Mystic Gate. Then go south for another 3,000 miles, and you will be out of the 5 Paths immortal domain. In the teleportation formation, you must follow me closely to prevent any accidents. All right, Sumo nodded. Let's go. Mu Jinghong pulled Sumo. Then, the two of them directly entered the teleportation formation. Sumo only felt a purple light flash in front of her. Then, she heard wind beside her ears. Between heaven and earth, there was chaos. However, unknowingly, Sumo actually held Mu Jinghong's hand. Mu Jinghong's hand seemed to be slightly cold, but it was soft and smooth as if there were no bones. Sumo's heart skipped a beat. She enjoyed it very much. Mu Jinghong's body also emitted a faint fragrance. What was even more beautiful was that Mu Jinghong did not retract his hand, as if he did not notice during the teleportation. Sumo became more daring, and she slightly tightened her grip. However, Mu Jinghong still did not react. However, Sumo could feel that Mu Jinghong's hand was gradually becoming hotter. Sumo was overjoyed. This teleportation was simply too beautiful. The longer the teleportation time, the better. In the teleportation formation, it was actually very difficult to have a clear concept of time. Holding Mu Jinghong's hand and smelling the faint fragrance, Sumo only felt that she was at the other end of the teleportation formation in a daze. Then, her eyes suddenly opened up, but the bright moon hung high in the sky. In the distance, there were endless mountains. There was a teleportation formation beneath Sumo and Mu Jinghong's feet. The formation was also made of black stone, almost exactly the same as the Five Wheels Mystic Gate in the north of Five Wheels. Senior Sister Mu, this is the Five Wheels Mystic Gate in the south? Sumo asked. Just now, Sumo had been holding Mu Jinghong's hand. Mu Jinghong did not refuse and did not even struggle free. At this moment, Mu Jinghong naturally retracted his hand after leaving the teleportation formation. Although Sumo was a little disappointed, she did not dare to hold his hand anymore. That's right, this is the southernmost Five Wheels Mystic Gate. There's a Mystic Gate in the north and south of the Five Wheels. We will be out of the Five Wheels Immortal Domain in another 3,000 miles. Let's go. Mu Jinghong wanted to leave the Five Wheels Immortal Domain as soon as possible, because she knew that it wouldn't take long for the Five Wheels sect to know that she and Su Mo had left the sect. Sumo also understood that they were escaping. Therefore, she directly took out her Sky Wheels ferry boat. This was a nascent soul-level Dharma treasure, and its speed was needless to say. The Sky Wheels ferry boat did not need spirit stones to power it. The two of them boarded the Sky Wheels ferry boat and flew south. Mu Jinghong was right. Sure enough, as soon as she and Sumo left the Five Wheels Mystic Gate in the south, someone in the Five Wheels sect knew about it. However, the first person to know that they were heading south was not Yang Tianxiao of the Heaven Wheel or Yin Zhoumo of the Earth Wheel, but Guan Xiong of the Yangjian Peak. During the battle at Tianlun Mountain, Mu Jinghong took Sumo away. Guan Xiong knew that things were not simple. However, even Guan Xiong did not expect that Mu Jinghong would suddenly appear at the Five Wheels Mystic Gate in the south. There were many checkpoints on Tianlun Mountain. How did Mu Jinghong do it? Normally, Guan Xiong was in charge of the transmission array at Yangjian Peak, and the transmission array at Five Wheels was a network. Guan Xiong used a secret technique to know almost all the data of the transmission array. However, why did Mu Jinghong suddenly appear at the Five Wheels Mystic Gate? Why did Mu Jinghong bring Sumo out of the Five Wheels Mystic Gate? That was the route all the way south. Could it be? Guan Xiong frowned slightly at the thought of this. Further south of Five Wheels was not an ordinary area. This was because there was the White Bone Ridge. It was a scar on the White Bone Continent. The Holy Wheel Ancient Site was in the White Bone Ridge. The Silent Death Valley was a forbidden area for cultivators, and it was also the center of the Holy Wheel Ancient Site. Even Guan Xiong was not willing to touch everything in the White Bone Ridge. He did not dare to set foot in the Silent Death Valley. Chapter 140. Five Wheels, Southern Five Wheels Mystic Gate. The Sky Wheel Immortal Boat was a nascent soul-level Dharma treasure, and its speed went without saying. Sumo and Mu Jinghong were quite relaxed on the Immortal Boat. The distance of 3,000 miles was covered in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Sumo and Mu Jinghong had already left the Five Wheels Immortal Domain. At the same time, the Heaven Wheel and Earth Wheel Meridians quickly learned that Mu Jinghong had brought Sumo out of the Southern Five Wheels Mystic Gate. On Sky Wheel Mountain, inside the cave abode, Yang Tianxiao looked at the communication jade slip in his hand and smiled. He had expected Mu Jinghong to bring Sumo away. This was also the result he wanted. When he asked Mu Jinghong to bring Sumo away, he knew that Mu Jinghong would definitely not let Sumo reflect on herself. 3 days later, the Five Wheels Mystic Gate was out, which was quite fast. However, Yang Tianxiao could not help but frown slightly. That was because Mu Jinghong did not bring Sumo to the northern Five Wheels Mystic Gate, but in the opposite direction. The two of them actually went straight to the south. This surprised Yang Tianxiao a little. Shouldn't Mu Jinghong go all the way to the north? Could it be that my deduction is wrong? Yang Tianxiao took a deep breath. Although going south or north did not affect his plan, Yang Tianxiao did not like any accidents. He liked every move to be within his calculations. Therefore, he often played chess with himself. They fought and killed each other, but he was the master. That was true control of the whole game. Then, Yang Tianxiao sent out a thought. A moment later, two figures appeared in the cave abode. The two cultivators were middle-aged and wore blue robes. From their appearance, they looked like a pair of brothers. "Greetings, Peak Master." The two of them bowed. "Elders, it's been a long time since you came out of seclusion. Please forgive us for disturbing you today." Yang Tianxiao was extremely polite to the pair of blue-robed cultivators. "You're too kind, Peak Master. There must be something important for you to summon us two brothers. As long as Peak Master has the command, we brothers are willing to go through fire and water for Peak Master." One of the blue-robed cultivators said. "He." Yang Tian laughed. "If there's nothing important, why would I bother you two? This is your mission." After saying that, Yang Tianxiao shot out a jade slip which fell into the hands of the blue-robed cultivator who spoke just now. The two blue-robed cultivators scanned with their divine senses and understood. "Rest assured, Chief, we brothers will definitely not disappoint you." With that said, the two blue-robed cultivators bowed and vanished. Yang Tianxiao was as steady as Mount Tai in the cave dwelling. The Tianlun sect was known as the 10 Core Completion Masters. Today, however, the two he sent out were not among the top 10 core formation cultivators. Two of the advanced stage of the core formation realm. If they could not do it, then Yang Tianxiao would have to do himself. However, Yang Tianxiao understood that it was not time yet. In fact, he already knew that the Slekton sect was getting restless. As for Sumo's matter, Yang Tianxiao knew that there must be someone more anxious than him. Therefore, he planned everything and sat calmly on the fishing platform, killing with a borrowed knife. This was the realm he had been pursuing. The Fire Wheel and Earth Wheel sects would certainly not sit idly by. Sumo must be very important to them. Earth Wheel Mountain. Injomo was very excited to know that Mu Jinghong and Sumo had left the Five Paths Immortal Domain, because that was the opportunity he wanted. He did not need to think about what Mu Jinghong and Sumo were going to do. He only wanted the Soul Gathering Pearl to capture Sumo. However, he was a little surprised. Wasn't Mu Jinghong going to the Slekton sect? However, this question only flashed past Injomo's mind. After all, Mu Jinghong's true identity was not the most important thing at this time. Injomo pressed a mechanism next to his seat. Prior to this, he had already made arrangements and issued the order. The Earthwheel Mountain was in chaos. In an instant, 7 gray-robed cultivators disappeared. That was the top force of the Earthwheel Mountain. Their target was naturally Sumo, because the patriarch in the cave gave Injomo too little time. To wear the crown, one must bear the weight. He could only take the risk. Out of the 7 core formation masters, only he, Injomo, was left. In order to capture Sumo, he used the Earth Wheel core formation power that was unknown to the outside world. The Earth Wheel lineage had always been known as the 7 core formation masters, but in reality, Injomo was not one of them. The 7 core formation masters were all out. Mu Jinghong could also be killed. On the Earthwheel Mountain, only Injomo was in charge. In fact, as long as the patriarch in the cave was there, Injomo had absolute confidence in the entire Five Paths Immortal Domain. All of this was worth staking it all on one throw. At this moment, the Fire Wheel Mountain's first seat, Ruan Yulin, was still hesitating. Although he was also a core formation cultivator, his ability was far from Yang Tianxiao and Injomo's. He did not know that Elder Huilunhong had already brought the 3 core formation cultivators into the transportation array. Ruan Yulin had long lost control of the Firewall lineage. However, he was still unaware of it. The water wheel lineage. Shui Linglong sat cross-legged in the cave, not moving at all. She did not seem to have any plans. Her attention was actually not on Mu Jinghong and Sumo. She was waiting, or rather, she only needed to wait for Yuji to return. The wind wheel rises. It is time for me to return. That was the ancestral mark left behind by the water wheel lineage. As for the wind wheel lineage, it was silent. The wind wheel lineages were all quietly cultivating in their own caves. Compared to the past, the only special one was Su Yike. This was because he no longer returned to Yongjin Peak, but was stationed at the 5th peak of the wind wheel lineage. Other than that, everything else in the 5 Paths Immortal Domain seemed to have nothing to do with them. Everything in the wind wheel mountain seemed to have fallen asleep. It was silent. Mu Jinghong took Sumo away, but they did not respond. The wind wheel lineage would always be an anomaly in the 5 Paths Immortal Domain. The Heavenly Wheel Immortal Boat was extremely fast. Mu Jinghong and Sumo had already left the 5 Paths Immortal Domain. However, the White Bone Ridge was still 70,000 miles away from here. Could Mu Jinghong create another teleportation formation? Senior Sister Mu, are we going to take the Heavenly Wheel Immortal Boat all the way there? Sumo asked tentatively. That was because he remembered that Mu Jinghong only spent half a day bringing him back. When he heard second senior brother say that the Silent Death Valley was 70,000 miles away from the 5 Paths Immortal Domain, he was puzzled. How did senior sister Mu bring him back? Although the Heavenly Wheel Immortal Boat is not slow, I have a secret technique that can reach the White Bone Ridge. That way, it will be faster. At this moment, they had already left the 5 Paths Immortal Domain, and Mu Jinghong seemed to be a little less worried. She asked Sumo to put away the Heavenly Wheel Immortal Boat, and then began to form a seal with her hands again. However, the seal was different from the one in the cave abode. However, when Mu Jinghong formed the seal, a faint layer of purple light appeared on her body. The purple light was extremely mysterious. "Open!" Mu Jinghong shouted softly. Then, a purple light shot out from between her eyebrows. The purple light landed in the void and directly projected a purple door of light. Sumo was once again dumbfounded. Who exactly is this senior sister Mu? Is she creating a teleportation formation? Let's go. Mu Jinghong pulled Sumo. Chapter 141. Opening a path for mountains and building a bridge for rivers. Sumo finally witnessed Mu Jinghong's prowess. He was truly an omnipotent being. Disregarding everything else, the 2 teleportation arrays alone were enough to explain everything. Less than an hour after they disappeared, 7 gray figures landed outside the 5 Paths Immortal Realm. The 7 cultivators were all wearing gray robes that covered their faces. It was impossible to see their faces. They were the 7 core formation cultivators of the Earth Chakra Meridian. They just disappeared. One of the core formation cultivators looked around and said in a hoarse voice. He seemed to be able to sense some sort of aura. Can we still catch up? The shortest core formation cultivator asked. I'll try. However, they seem to have used some sort of secret technique and headed south. If we were a little later, even their auras would have disappeared. The cultivator with the hoarse voice formed a seal with both hands. Then, a mysterious light spread out in front of him. Instantly, an array appeared on the ground. The formation rippled with light, like a pool of water. There seemed to be a human figure moving inside the pool. As it turned out, the image of Mu Jinghong and Sumo was inside the pool. However, it was like an afterimage and only an outline could be seen. Even so, they could roughly make out what was going on. That core formation cultivator had the ability to use the remnant aura in the surroundings to recreate the scene from before. An image of heaven and earth. What kind of secret technique is that? The tall core formation cultivator pointed at Mu Jinghong's purple light spell. What a powerful spell. That looks like a legendary space-time technique. It's not a spell of the 5 paths at all. It's definitely not something a cultivator at the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm can use, another cultivator said. That's why the first seed is right. Mu Jinghong should be killed. She's definitely not loyal to the 5 paths. The cultivator who cast the mirror spell sneered hoarsely. It's a pity that she met us. Otherwise, it would be hard to say. With that kind of spell, even a late-stage core formation cultivator might not be able to catch up to her. Hee hee. The shortest cultivator seemed to be the leader. It's a pity indeed. Get into formation. Chase. Get into formation. Chase. It was an order from the shortest monk. These 7 core formation cultivators were clearly well-trained. In the blink of an eye, they took their positions according to the 7 stars and began to form hand seals. The 7 core formation cultivators cast their spells at the same time. The 7 of them instantly glowed with a mysterious light. It was the 7 stars descending. 7 stars chasing the moon, divine movement without a trace, borrowing the power of heaven and earth, 10,000 miles riding the wind. One of the cultivators shouted. When he looked again, the void instantly distorted. A deep black hole with thousands of wind masses suddenly appeared in the air. Go! The shortest cultivator called out. The 7 core formation cultivators flew into the black hole one after another and then disappeared. Their spell formation was actually similar to Mu Jinghong's spell formation. The White Bone Ridge meandered for thousands of miles like a tiger or a dragon. The mountains were ashen white, the birds were extinct, and there were few traces of people. This was the boundary between the northern and central regions of the Bone Continent. South of the White Bone Ridge was the central region of the White Bone Continent. At this time, it was almost dawn. The void fluctuated, and Mu Jinghong and Sumo appeared at the entrance of a valley. Mu Jinghong's purple light spell formation was indeed powerful. It seemed that the 2 of them had only been here for 6 hours at most. Sumo noticed that there were a few special runes at the entrance of the valley. They seemed to be some kind of mark. It seemed that Mu Jinghong came here often and was very familiar with it. Along the way, Sumo held Mu Jinghong's hand again. It seemed like she was having too much fun to leave. It would be great if they could stay in the teleportation array. Mu Jinghong probably did not have the same bad thoughts as Sumo. This is already the White Bone Ridge. Be careful. The White Bone Ridge is a mysterious place. The Holy Wheel ancient ruins are 300 miles ahead. Don't wander around. Mu Jinghong warned. Oh, Sumo immediately said, Senior Sister Mu, I think you should take me with you. It's safer that way. Mu Jinghong glared at Sumo. He naturally understood Sumo's bad thoughts. Sumo, don't you have a bamboo pole? Why don't you take out the bamboo pole and I'll use it to hold you? I think that's very convenient. Huh? Sumo quickly waved her hands. Wouldn't that make her blind? Then forget it. Senior Sister Mu, I can follow you. I won't wander around. Sumo changed her mind. Hee hee. Mu Jinghong sneered. Cut the crap. After entering the Holy Wheel ancient ruins, we will reach the Silent Death Valley. For the last part of the journey, we can't use our flying artifacts. We can only ride the wind. Why can't we use our flying artifacts? Sumo asked. Because this is an ancient ruin and there are many strange things hidden here. We can't use our flying artifacts to avoid disturbing ancient souls or other unknown things, Mu Jinghong said. Ancient dead souls, unknown things? Sumo couldn't help but grin. Why did it sound so scary? However, when he thought about the Silent Death Valley that he had been to, he calmed down. This White Bone Ridge did indeed look like an ominous place. Let's go. Mu Jinghong walked in front, while Sumo followed behind. White Bone Ridge. The mountains were gray. The color was not the normal color of bones. Instead, it looked like the color of bone ash. The 2 of them rode the wind and soon entered the Holy Wheel ancient ruins. At this moment, the sky was slightly bright, revealing the white of a fish belly. The mountains were vast and desolate. Between the mountains, there was a faint glow of dawn. However, there were no beasts on the White Bone Ridge and no one in the Holy Wheel ancient ruins. It was empty and deathly silent. Previously, Sumo had also passed through this part of the journey. However, it was Mu Jinghong who had carried him. Later on, he had closed his eyes, so he could not see clearly. Now, when Sumo looked down, he realized that the Holy Wheel ancient ruins were not ordinary. There were mountains here. However, Some of the valleys clearly had traces of human activity. There were even collapsed pavilions and houses in many places. On a tall mountain, Sumo even saw half a tower. However, the remaining parts of the pagoda had almost turned into soil. This Holywell ancient ruins was like a cultivator civilization that had been submerged. Among the mountains, there was someone who still remembered the story of the past. The vicissitudes of life were overwhelming. Senior Mu, how old is this Holywell ancient ruins? Sumo could not help but ask. 1,000,000 years, or even earlier. Mu Jinghong answered naturally. 1,000,000 years? Sumo could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. It was difficult for him to imagine the concept of time. Even after 1,000,000 years, there were still visible ruins. If the cultivators of the past knew about this, they would have no regrets. Mu Jinghong's speed was fast, but he still had to follow Sumo. After all, Sumo was only a perfected 9th-tier Qi refinement cultivator. When the two of them were less than 100 miles into the Holywell ancient ruins, suddenly, a song came from not far away. The broken hook hangs on the red mountain, asking nothing. Head held high, crossing the water and piercing through the clouds, forever walking on the mountain. Spiritual divine object, a candle in the wind. Why do you need a whip? Living in the world, forgetting yourself. Who cares if it's white, clean, or not? Sighing, beyond the clouds, Buddha and demons are all empty. The song was loud and leisurely, full of an otherworldly aura. Chapter 142. The Holywell ancient ruins were silent. However, that singing voice suddenly rang out. Both Mu Jinghong and Sumo were slightly taken aback. Sumo was merely curious. However, it was definitely not Mu Jinghong's first time at the Holywell ancient ruins. However, apart from Sumo, he had never met anyone else before. Looking to the west, the valley was filled with rolling yellow sand. Above the yellow sand, he could vaguely see a gigantic creature. At that moment, Mu Jinghong naturally lowered his hands. However, Sumo could sense that Mu Jinghong was ready to fight at any moment. Sumo could even sense that Mu Jinghong was exuding an extremely unique aura. Perhaps it was an instinct. The Holywell ancient ruins was one of the 3 sacred grounds of the Bone Mainland. Mu Jinghong knew that everyone and everything that happened here would not be simple. The gigantic creature was neither fast nor slow. However, it seemed to be getting closer after crossing a few mountains. Sumo's expression suddenly changed. That was because he saw it clearly. That monster was actually an incomparably large pig. That's right. Sumo was not mistaken. It was definitely a pig. However, the pig was too huge. Ever since he started cultivating, Sumo seemed to be fated with pigs. He had seen at least 2 special pigs before. His little white pig, Hung Hung, and his eldest senior brother's wild boar king, the black elephant beast. The little white pig, Hung Hung, was a dragon elephant soul eater, but it was only a foot long and had a body like a ball. It was more like a cute pet. As for the black elephant beast, it was black and swarthy. Its usual form was about 30 meters tall. It was tall, mighty, and ferocious. However, compared to the pig in front of him, they were at a disadvantage. That was because the pig in front of him was nearly 60 meters tall. It was the size of 2 black elephant beasts. However, it was not black. Instead, it was snow white and had a spherical shape. Its body was almost an infinitely enlarged version of Hung Hung. There was no sword-like mane on its back. Instead, there was a row of soft, snow-white fur. When the wind blew, it was as elegant as a strand of hair, very eye-catching. Pig eyes, pig mouth, but no fangs. However, its eyes were not as round and cute as Hung Hang's. Instead, they were squinted into small slits. It looked like it was not fully awake, or in a state where it could not see clearly. The cultivator sitting on the pig was a black-robed old man. The old man was as skinny as a monkey. In his hand was a long whip used to herd pigs. However, the whip shaft was like black jade, and the whip rope was about 3 to 4 meters long, emitting a black light. Anyone with a discerning eye would know that it wasn't an ordinary pig whip. Actually, that big white pig didn't need to be driven. It stepped on clouds, stirring up yellow sand. It was definitely a spiritual beast. The big white pig quickly arrived in front of Mu Jinghong and Sumo. Humph! Humph! This fellow humph like to hum. But he was a big guy, and his humming was completely different from the little white pig's humming. The humming sound was very cute and cute. However, the big white pig in front of them was like thunder, rumbling and echoing. Sumo was shaken to the core. Fortunately, the Holy Will Ancient site was quite spacious. Otherwise, if this fellow hummed a few times, it would probably kill a group of people. Mu Jinghong and Sumo stopped in the void and did not move forward, because the big white pig and the black-robed old man were already heading straight for them. Be careful of that beast. It's at least a nascent soul spirit beast. Mu Jinghong sent a voice transmission to Sumo. That old man is definitely a grand cultivator. Nascent soul spirit beast, at least? Sumo couldn't help but be shocked. That big white pig was actually a nascent soul spirit beast. Then, what realm was the old man riding on at? Before Sumo could ask, the man and the pig had already arrived in front of Mu Jinghong and Sumo. My two young friends, where are you going? The black-robed old man on the big white pig held a long whip and asked with a smile. Greetings, senior. Mu Jinghong and Sumo hurriedly bowed. Sumo couldn't see the black-robed old man's realm. Mu Jinghong was also suspicious, because with her eyesight, she could even see a nascent soul late-stage cultivator. But in her eyes, the old man in front of her was actually immortal. Could he be his soul transformation grand cultivator? Mu Jinghong also didn't dare to imagine. We want to go to the west. Mu Jinghong's answer was very interesting. The west. Hee. The black-robed old man yawned on the big white pig. Girl, I just came from that side. It's really boring. Why don't you turn back? Oh. Mu Jinghong looked at the black-robed old man and said calmly, Senior feels that it's boring. Maybe it's because you're experienced and don't mind. We juniors still want to broaden our horizons and gain experience. Hee. Hearing this, the black-robed old man didn't object and nodded with a smile. Fine. I'll let you guys go then. But in the Sacred Wheel ancient ruins, every step is dangerous. You guys have to be careful. Thank you, senior. Mu Jinghong hurriedly thanked him and did not dare to hesitate. He directly pulled Sumo around the man and the beast. However, when Sumo passed by the white pig seemed to be a little afraid, and its body slightly moved to the side. Hee. The big white pig snorted lightly, but it didn't sound loud, as if it didn't dare to do anything. His eyes were narrowed into slits, revealing a trace of fear. The black-robed old man sitting on the white pig couldn't help but frown slightly. His mount was one of the best in the entire Whitebone mainland. It was not afraid of nascent soul or even soul transformation realm cultivators. But now that it saw the azure-robed young man, why would it be afraid? The azure-robed young man was only a chi refinement realm cultivator. Originally, he didn't pay much attention to Mu Jinghong and Sumo. This was because the Sacred Wheel ancient ruins was one of the 3 sacred grounds of the Whitebone mainland. Every once in a while, there would be 1 or 2 cultivators who came to explore. These cultivators usually didn't have high cultivation levels, but they were quite bold. Most of the time, they would either return in failure or be buried in the ancient ruins. Just now, he had naturally included Mu Jinghong and Sumo in the list. However, the reaction of his mount made him take a closer look at Sumo. He was slightly startled as he took a closer look. Half of a white bone immortal root? The black-robed old man immediately saw through Sumo's Dan Ocean. Inside the Dan Ocean, 9 streams of chi surged like dragons, but they were not compatible. In the middle, half of a white bone immortal root floated and flickered with a white glow. White bone immortal root, white bone body. The black-robed old man was startled. Does this azure-robed young man have such talent? Is he a cultivator born for the Whitebone mainland? But even if this young man is a genius, my white dragon doesn't have to be afraid of him. After all, this young man is still a young cultivator. Chapter 143. While the old man was thinking, Sumo and Mu Jinghong were about to go around the big white pig. This was because the big white pig had been carefully avoiding them. The old man was still frowning. He wanted to take a closer look at Mu Jinghong's background. However, a white meatball-like thing suddenly jumped on his Sumo's shoulder. At first glance, that fellow looked like a big snowball. Oomph. The little fellow jumped on his Sumo's shoulder and snorted at the big white pig. It looked angry and bared its fangs at the same time. It was charmingly naive, but pretended to be fierce. However, that was only the feeling of a cultivator. The aura of the little white pig frightened the big white pig. Oomph, oomph. The originally nervous big white pig was instantly stunned when it saw the little white pig snort. It snorted twice, and then its eyes suddenly widened. The little white pig bared its fangs. The big fellow did not make a second sound and turned to run, almost turning into a puff of white smoke. Its speed was definitely 10 times faster than before, because it ran too suddenly and fiercely. The black-robed old man who was sitting on top was almost flung off. Fortunately, he was strong. However, he could not believe his eyes just now. On the shoulder of the green-clothed young man, there was a dragon-elephant soul-devouring beast. There's actually a dragon-elephant soul-devouring beast in the Pure Land. The black-robed old man was as excited as the big white pig's fear. However, the black-robed old man could no longer control the frightened big white pig. The big white pig ran like a madman. The old man could only control the pig first and make plans later. Mu Jinghong and Sumo were in a hurry to leave, because that black-clothed old man was too powerful. Therefore, they did not pay much attention to what happened just now. The little white pig jumped out, and Sumo did not stop it, because this fellow was always jumping around and doing all kinds of weird things. On the other hand, the little white pig was very satisfied that it scared the big white pig away. Oomph. The little guy did a 360-degree somersault on Sumo's shoulder, then did a handstand and stuck out its tongue in the direction of the white pig. All the pigs in the world must submit to me. Then it burrowed into Sumo's arms and continued to sleep. Mu Jinghong and Sumo delayed for a while before continuing their journey. At this time, they were less than 800 miles away from Silent Death Valley. To them, this distance was nothing. Sumo even vaguely remembered that Mu Jinghong had brought him along this part of the journey, riding the wind. Mu Jinghong also relaxed slightly. It seemed that the people from Five Wheels hadn't chased after them. Just now, other than the mysterious black-clothed old man, they did not encounter anyone else. 700 li, 600 li, 500 li, 400 li. Everything went smoothly. From afar, Mu Jinghong and Sumo could even see the stone walls on both sides of the Silent Death Valley's entrance. They emitted a faint white light and were as straight as swords pointing to the sky. The words, "Gods come to bury, immortals come to rest," seemed to be right in front of them. The ancient and desolate feeling was about to hit them. The place where Mu Jinghong first met Sumo was very close. However, at this moment, whoosh, just in front of them, 7 green smoke suddenly rose. In the blink of an eye, 7 gray-robed cultivators with their heads and faces covered appeared in the green smoke. They were the 7 core formation cultivators of the Earth Chakra Meridian. Mu Jinghong raised his eyebrows. 7 stars moon chasing technique. Mu Jinghong immediately recognized that it was a secret technique from Five Wheels. However, it required 7 core formation cultivators to cast the technique at the same time. It was an escape technique that was comparable to a spatial technique. No wonder they could catch up to him and Sumo. Actually, Mu Jinghong had been prepared, but he didn't expect to be intercepted just a few miles away from Silent Death Valley, because in just a moment, they would arrive at Silent Death Valley. This situation gave people the feeling that all their efforts were in vain. The people from Five Wheels still arrived. Mu Jinghong's expression suddenly turned cold. He slightly opened his right hand. That mystical black sword appeared in his hand without a sound or presence. 7 core formation cultivators. Among them, 3 were in the early stage, 3 were in the middle stage, and 1 was even in the late stage. Such a lineup could be said to have put in a lot of effort. Mu Jinghong's heart chilled. Against such a lineup, she had no chance of winning. If she was alone, she might be able to escape. However, there was still Sumo. She probably wouldn't even be able to escape. Mu Jinghong still underestimated the determination and ambition of some people within the five wheels. In the entire five wheels, other than the Heaven Chakra Meridian, only the Earth Chakra Meridian could barely send out such a lineup. Perhaps there were people from 2 or 3 meridians among them. This was the power of one meridian, or even 1/3 of the power of the entire five wheels. Elders, why are you hiding your head and showing your tail? Mu Jinghong knew that they were definitely people from the five wheels, but he couldn't tell which meridian they were from. However, it was most likely that they were Earth Chakra Meridian. On the graceful cliff, 100 days have not passed. Junior sister Mu actually traveled thousands of miles to help Sumo escape. Such deep affection. However, why did you come to the Holy Wheel ancient ruins? Also, have you asked Chief Yang? The short elder asked. What we do has nothing to do with you. Chief Yang. Mu Jinghong looked at the short elder and sneered. If Chief Yang has an order, you only need to send a voice transmission. I'll surrender myself to you. I like to ask, when the elders came, did you ask Chief Yin about it? Both of their words were sharp, and there was a hidden meaning in their words. Senior brother, we don't have to talk nonsense with her. The cultivator with the hoarse voice interrupted. Let Sumo hand over the soul-gathering pearl first. The short elder turned and asked Sumo, Sumo, did you hear that? Hand over the soul-gathering pearl on you. As long as you hand over the pearl, we will spare your life. Soul-gathering pearl? It was the first time Mu Jinghong heard of this, and he couldn't help but look at Sumo. Sumo shook her head and said, I don't have any soul-gathering pearl on me. Sumo, don't play dumb. Didn't you get a brownish-yellow pearl at the Punishing Heart Cliff? The elder with the hoarse voice asked again. Oh, when Sumo heard this, he couldn't help but laugh coldly. This elder actually knows so much. Could it be that you were the one who put the pearl there? Was the Black Jade Slip mission related to you? Sumo, stop talking nonsense. Are you going to hand over the pearl or not? The elder with the hoarse voice asked. The pearl is not with me. Sumo said. Where is it? The short elder asked. In the Windwheel Mountain, in the hands of my 7th senior sister. Sumo sneered. If you have the ability, you can challenge the Windwheel Mountain. Let's see if my senior brothers and sisters will give it to you. Challenge the Windwheel Mountain? If she said this a few days ago, the 7 completion masters probably wouldn't hesitate. However, after the battle at the Skywheel Mountain, everyone had to reevaluate the strength of the Windwheel Mountain. Challenge the Windwheel Mountain. They really didn't dare to. However, at this moment, they didn't dare to judge whether Sumo was speaking the truth or not. Senior brother, kill. The cultivator with a hoarse voice said fiercely. Capture Sumo, and everything will be easy. Get into formation. The short elder didn't hesitate and immediately ordered. Whoosh! The 7 stars stood in formation. The 7 completion masters each guarded one side. These 7 people were not careless. Mu Jinghong could kill completion masters. They wouldn't give Mu Jinghong any chance, so they chose to get into formation. Chapter 144. The 7 core formation cultivators formed a formation that contained the Big Dipper. Mu Jinghong narrowed his eyes. The black sword in his hand glowed with a murderous aura. The 7-star formation responded to the heavens above and the people below. It contained endless transformations and contained many magical techniques. At this moment, the late-stage core formation cultivator, who hadn't spoken yet, was standing on the Alcade star, as steady as Mount Tai. He was the 7-star array core. The 6-star positions of Dubhe, Merak, Fekta, Migrez, Alioth, and Mizar were occupied and guarded by the other 6 core formation cultivators. With a turn of the handle, the formation changed. The 4 seasons of heaven and earth were all contained within. This 7-star formation was an extremely complicated formation for cultivators. It could be said to have endless variations and was capable of both offense and defense. In order to break this formation, one must first destroy the formation core. However, the other 6 stars were all guarding the main star. As long as the main star was not destroyed, the other 6 stars would not be destroyed. As long as the 6 stars were not destroyed, the main star would not be destroyed. This in itself was a never-ending predicament. Of course, the most powerful way to break this formation was to overwhelm it with strength. At this moment, if there were nascent soul late stage or soul transformation cultivators here, they could completely ignore this formation. One power destroy. However, Mu Jinghong definitely did not have that kind of cultivation. She could indeed kill core formation cultivators, but she was not in the nascent soul or the soul transformation realm. Today, if there were 3 or 4 mid-stage core formation cultivators chasing after them, Mu Jinghong was confident that he could kill his way out and send Sumo to Silent Death Valley. However, before them were 7 completion-leveled cultivators. Among them, there were even those of the advanced stage of the completion level. They were also forming a 7-star formation. This was beyond Mu Jinghong's expectations. There was no need to mobilize so many people just to kill the 9th son of the Wheel of Wind. Soul Gathering Pearl, a grandmaster below the Earth Wheel level. Injomo only had 25 days left. These were all factors that Mu Jinghong did not know about. Therefore, Mu Jinghong and Sumo fell into a desperate situation. If it was on the graceful cliff, it would definitely not be like this. Because in the 5 wheels, it was estimated that no one dared to barge into the Sky Wheel Mountain. At this moment, Mu Jinghong finally understood why Yang Tianxiao had asked him to take Sumo away. All of this was probably part of Yang Tianxiao's plan. He knew that Mu Jinghong wouldn't allow Sumo to stay at Fleeting Cliff forever. What good way to kill someone with a borrowed knife? Yang Tianxiao was indeed very calculative. Within 5 wheels, there were many people who wanted to kill Sumo. However, since things had already come to this, there was no point in regretting. Mu Jinghong could only fight. Sumo, do you remember what I said? Mu Jinghong sent a sound transmission. In a while, if there's a chance, charge out of the Grand Array and head straight for Silent Death Valley. Don't worry about me. Senior Sister Mu, how could Sumo agree? Cut the crap. If you don't escape, you will only be a burden to me. Mu Jinghong said sternly. All right. Sumo gritted her teeth and nodded. Given the current situation, Sumo could only nod, because he felt that it was absolutely impossible for him to have such an opportunity. Taking a step back, even if there was a chance, should he really abandon Mu Jinghong? Mu Jinghong came to the Holy Wheel historical site to build his foundation. How could Sumo abandon it? He wasn't sure about Mu Jinghong's battle strength. However, he knew that it was impossible for Mu Jinghong to win against the 7 completion-leveled cultivators before him. Even if Mu Jinghong hid his abilities, there was no way he could win against 7 completion-leveled cultivators. If that was the case, Mu Jinghong would have entered the ancestral spirit peak of 5 wheels a long time ago. Could it be that he wouldn't die here today? Sumo's heart skipped a beat, because he really hadn't thought about this problem before. In the cultivation world, life and death were decided in an instant. At this moment, after Sumo agreed, Mu Jinghong no longer spoke. However, the black sword in her hand shone even brighter. Junior Sister Mu, I will give you one last chance, the short elder said. Senior Sister Mu didn't speak, because she had already made her move. The black sword was like a dragon that had a tail of light that was tens of meters long and aimed straight for the short elder. The short elder was of the intermediate stage of the completion level, and his cultivation level was definitely not weak. Mu Jinghong's sword was extremely accurate and fast. If they fought one-on-one, the short elder would not be Mu Jinghong's opponent. However, this was not a one-on-one fight. The short elder had the array as his foundation. Mu Jinghong's sword pierced forward, and the short elder hurriedly retreated to avoid its sharpness. Then, he didn't even need to make a move. The 2 beginning stage completion level elders in the Merak infected positions were already attacking Mu Jinghong. One was the Fire Dragon art, the other was the Wind Walking art. They were both normal techniques of the 5 elements. However, the techniques used by 2 completion level elders were extremely powerful. The combination of the 2 techniques increased their power. The Wind and Fire Dragons headed straight for Mu Jinghong. Mu Jinghong could only stop his attack to protect himself. At the same time, he drew in the air with one hand. A black hole suddenly appeared in the air. The black hole swallowed the wind and fire. It was a strange technique that Mu Jinghong once used. Two beginning stage completion level elders obviously couldn't hurt her. However, they left immediately and didn't want to fight Mu Jinghong. Then, the three completion level cultivators from the Migres, Mizar, and Alioth positions attacked Mu Jinghong. Two core formation techniques. One was a nascent soul level immortal sword. Mu Jinghong once again dispelled the opponent's technique. At the same time, the black sword in his hand deflected the elder's flying sword. This was basically a one-on-one battle. Plus, the completion level cultivators only attacked and didn't defend, because there were people inside the array helping them attack instead of defend. This was the power of an array. Mu Jinghong was defending almost the entire time. These simple exchanges were only for Mu Jinghong. Any other normal cultivator probably wouldn't be able to handle it. However, even though Mu Jinghong had the power to kill a completion level cultivator, she was exhausted. Luckily, the 7 completion level elders were very cautious and didn't attack with their full strength. Dazzling white bones for 3,000 years. Mu Jinghong's name was well known. That day on Tianlun Mountain, he even formed his core with his sword. Therefore, they wanted to see Mu Jinghong's combat ability and exhaust her spiritual energy. They were also afraid that Mu Jinghong would use a strange technique at the end. This gave Mu Jinghong a chance to breathe. The advanced stage completion level cultivator was merely controlling the array and didn't attack. However, the continuous bombardment of the 6 core formation realm cultivators, coupled with their exquisite teamwork, had already caused Mu Jinghong to be overwhelmed. More importantly, Mu Jinghong had to think of ways to protect Sumo at all times. In a battle of the completion level, a simple technique could kill Sumo. Because of this, Mu Jinghong's combat ability was greatly affected. At this moment, Sumo truly realized that she was a burden. Even though he was holding onto the broken bamboo pole and his Dan Si was filled with spiritual energy. But in a battle like this, it was useless. His Chi refinement spiritual energy was not worth mentioning at all. Sumo's expression was very ugly. To be protected by a woman while being powerless was something that no man would want to face, especially since Sumo had to admit that she had special feelings for Mu Jinghong. However, even though Sumo was holding onto the broken bamboo pole tightly, there was nothing she could do. Sumo's fingers were turning white because she could feel that Mu Jinghong was having a hard time holding on. His opponent was far too powerful. Another ice dragon pierced towards Mu Jinghong. At this moment, Mu Jinghong's body was covered in a faint purple glow. Mu Jinghong's cultivation level was already unfathomable. He looked like a core, yet not. Boom! Mu Jinghong waved the black sword in her hand and dispersed the ice dragon. She knew very well that she had to use a secret technique, or else she would die here. Thinking about this, Mu Jinghong pointed between her brows with 2 fingers. Chapter 145. Seal. Open. Mu Jinghong shocked everyone present. Because just 3 days ago, the Windwheel faction's second senior apprentice brother, Du Shusheng, had almost shouted the same thing. Du Shusheng activated the windmill mark between his brows and leveled up from the foundational level to the peak of the intermediate stage of the core formation realm. Would Mu Jinghong do the same? However, Mu Jinghong's seal was different from Du Shusheng's. There was no windmill mark between Mu Jinghong's brows. There was only a purple star. The star was hexagonal in shape. The purple light was bright and limitless. At the same time, Mu Jinghong's cultivation level did not increase. However, Mu Jinghong's body was also emitting a faint purple light, as if she was wearing a layer of armor. Perhaps it was that layer of armor that made it so that no one could clearly see her realm. At this moment, the advanced stage of the core formation realm couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, because the layers of faint purple light were too eerie. It was a spell he had never seen before. What did the purple star between Mu Jinghong's brows represent? What kind of seal was that? Mu Jinghong, who are you? The short elder shouted. However, no matter how he shouted, Mu Jinghong ignored him. Whoosh! Mu Jinghong formed a hand seal, and a purple light circled around her fingertip. A unique pressure was emitted from her body. At that moment, all the completion stage cultivators paused. Nascent soul pressure. The cultivator with a hoarse voice exclaimed. That's right. Mu Jinghong was emitting a nascent soul pressure. Could it be that Mu Jinghong was a nascent soul cultivator? However, the pressure did not seem to be coming from Mu Jinghong. It was coming from the purple light around her body. Was she being possessed? Where did Mu Jinghong borrow the pressure of a nascent soul? The completion stage cultivators were shocked. However, what was happening before them did not allow them to think too much. Because Mu Jinghong was borrowing the pressure of a nascent soul. The black sword in her hand suddenly shone brightly. In an instant, it looked like a black river was hanging in the sky. Nobody here knew where the black sword in Mu Jinghong's hand came from, but it was at least a peak nascent soul treasure. At this moment, the black sword had turned into a river and was covered in purple light. Mu Jinghong's sword went straight for the Mizar star. The one guarding the Mizar star position was a tall and sturdy mid-stage core formation cultivator. He did not dare to face Mu Jinghong's nascent soul aura head-on, even though he had an immortal sword in his hand. Bang! The mid-stage core formation realm cultivator could only defend himself with a sword light before retreating. According to the formation, it should be Alioth and Migrez cultivators attacking Mu Jinghong. However, the purple light between Mu Jinghong's brows lit up again. A purple screen of light suddenly blocked in front of Alioth and Migrez. The two of them suddenly stopped moving. For a moment, he couldn't attack. Mu Jinghong wanted to take this opportunity. The black sword in his hand twirled as he charged at the late-stage core formation cultivator. This was the only time Mu Jinghong had a chance to attack the late-stage core formation cultivator, the eye of the 7-star formation array. That was because the 7-star formation was simply too tight. Mu Jinghong relied on the fact that he had opened the seal between his brows to get this chance. A late-stage core formation cultivator was definitely a grand cultivator. Seeing Mu Jinghong attack, he couldn't help but admire him. This Mu Jinghong was truly powerful, especially the seal between her brows. It seemed like a powerful cultivator purposely left it between her brows. There was a surge of nascent soul power sealed there. Mu Jinghong's sword carried the pressure of a nascent soul cultivator. However, she was facing a late-stage core formation cultivator. More importantly, the late-stage core formation cultivator had the support of an array. 5 chakra, Earth Shield. The late-stage core formation cultivator shouted and cast a spell. It was a pure Earth chakra technique. At this moment, it was no longer important to hide his identity. Bang! A stone tablet suddenly rose from the void and blocked in front of him. The stone tablet was flowing with runes and looked very ancient. In terms of defensive techniques, Earth Chakra was definitely the best among the 5 chakras. Boom! Crack! Mu Jinghong's sword hit the stone tablet. The black light entered the stone tablet and shook violently. In an instant, the stone tablet shattered and fell like rain. However, Mu Jinghong couldn't hurt the late-stage core formation cultivator at all, because the late-stage core formation cultivator was already dozens of feet away. Perhaps all of this was within Mu Jinghong's expectations, because right at this instant, a strand of black light suddenly flew out from within her embroidered storage pouch. Black Feather Deity. The cries of phoenixes and cranes broke the dead silence of the holy chakra ancient ruins. The divine bird was connected to Mu Jinghong's mind. The moment it appeared, it flew toward the late-stage core formation cultivator like a bolt of black lightning. It wasn't a secret that Mu Jinghong had a divine bird. Therefore, the late-stage core formation cultivator was already on guard. The moment the black feather deity appeared, the late core formation realm cultivator took out a huge net. Whoosh! The large net flew toward the deity Hong. It was specially prepared to deal with this divine bird. This time, the deity Hong seemed to have walked right into the net. Fortunately, the godly spirit's intelligence was already developed. When it saw the large net enveloping over, it suddenly flapped its wings and practically shot straight up into the sky. This time, it barely dodged the attack of the large net. Mu Jinghong used this opportunity to not attack the late-stage core formation cultivator anymore. Instead, he leaned to the side. The black sword in his hand went straight for the early-stage core formation cultivator. In fact, this strike was Mu Jinghong's ultimate goal in this attack. The 7 stars array was unbreakable. However, Mu Jinghong could tear a hole in the array. Even though he couldn't break the array, he could think of a way to send Sumo out. This place was only a few miles away from the Silent Death Valley. As long as he could get out of the array, Mu Jinghong would be able to stall the 7 core formation cultivators for a few breaths of time. The 2 early-stage core formation cultivators were the weakest link in the 7 stars array. All of Mu Jinghong's moves just now were to create a diversion so that the early-stage core formation cultivator wouldn't be protected by the array's eye. Actually, that was only an instant. That was the instant when Mu Jinghong used all his strength. However, that instant was enough for Mu Jinghong. Mu Jinghong's body glowed purple and turned into an afterimage. That sword was fast and ruthless. That sword pierced through the core formation cultivator's left shoulder. If it wasn't for the 7 stars array, Mu Jinghong's sword would definitely have pierced through the cultivator's forehead, just like how he pointed his sword at Qin Huching on Tianlin Mountain. However, that was then, and this was now. Mu Jinghong's success in one move was already considered a success. Because the moment the core formation cultivator was pierced, the 7 stars array finally had a sliver of a gap. "Sumo run!" Mu Jinghong yelled. At this moment, Sumo didn't hesitate. Because he had seen through everything. He himself was completely useless. He was really a burden. Sumo used all his strength to dash out. However, he was only at the 9th level of Qi cultivation. In this top-level core formation array, his speed was like that of a snail. This array only had a momentary flaw. If he was a core formation or foundation-building cultivator, he would have no problem getting out. However, even though Sumo used all his strength, he was still one step too slow. Half of Sumo's body was already out of the array. However, the early-stage core formation cultivator from the Fectus star position had already arrived. That sword went straight for Sumo's back. Chapter 146. A completion-level cultivator's sword energy could kill from hundreds of miles away. That strike from the Fecta cultivator was enough to take Sumo's life. Actually, Sumo also felt the wind behind her and felt a chill down her spine. However, Sumo did not have the ability to protect himself at this moment. A cultivator at the peak of the 9th level of the meditational level could not block a strike from a completion-level cultivator. At this point, the Elder's sword energy had already hurt Sumo. Because Sumo's green robe was torn and blood was seeping out of her back. However, it was not fatal. Sumo was half a step away from leaving the 7 stars array. As long as she left the array, she would have a chance to live. But this half a step was life and death. Dying. The completion-level cultivator had already decided to kill Sumo. But how could Mu Jinghong let him succeed? Mu Jinghong knew that if she didn't risk her life to save Sumo, Sumo would die for sure. Everything Mu Jinghong was doing was for Sumo. Therefore, Mu Jinghong's eyes flashed with determination. Looking again, the purple light on her body suddenly dispersed and gathered. The faint purple armor on Mu Jinghong's body suddenly disappeared, and all the purple light gathered at the tip of her left index and middle finger. "Destroy!" Mu Jinghong shouted and pointed with one finger. Screech! The sound of something piercing through the air was like a whistling arrow. A ray of purple light shot out from Mu Jinghong's 2 fingertips. It was like a purple flying sword that headed straight for the completion-level cultivator's forehead. However, it was much more powerful than the flying sword. This move could be said to be Mu Jinghong's strongest move at the moment, because the purple light was the power of the nascent soul. Puff! Ah! How could that early-stage core formation cultivator block this purple light? Under the power of the nascent soul, his body stopped. The sword that was heading for Sumo naturally stopped. In the blink of an eye, the purple light pierced through the space between his brows. But Mu Jinghong paid a huge price for this move. That was the result Mu Jinghong was prepared to accept. That was because she had completely abandoned her personal defense just now. All for the sake of saving Sumo. The two core formation cultivators at the side, Dubhe and Migres, struck Mu Jinghong squarely in the middle of his back with their spells. The power of two completion cores was enough to kill Mu Jinghong. Poof! Bang! The cultivator whose forehead was pierced by the purple light had his head explode. Then his corpse fell from the sky. At the same time, Mu Jinghong's body swayed, and his face turned as white as a sheet. Wah, oh wah! 2 mouthfuls of blood spurted out. The front of Mu Jinghong's robe was stained with blood. However, at this moment, Sumo finally got out of the Big Dipper array. Sumo immediately felt her body lighten. At that moment, Sumo understood what it meant to be helpless and useless. He couldn't protect himself. He couldn't save Mu Jinghong either. He had hatred, but he could only hate himself. Thus, Sumo madly ran towards the Silent Death Valley, because within a few miles, any one of those core formation realm cultivators could easily kill him with one sword. Everything was just as he had imagined. Mu Jinghong almost died to stop the two core formation realm cultivators, but she was already at the end of her tether. The moment Mu Jinghong was stabbed, the advanced stage core formation realm cultivator also unleashed a sword ray. In fact, everything happened almost at the same time. That sword ray headed straight for Sumo. In Sumo's eyes, there was only the Silent Death Valley. The sword ray arrived. Life or death was decided. At that moment, Mu Jinghong seemed to be helpless. At that moment, a strange energy surged inside Sumo's body. Inside her Dansi, the white bone immortal root seemed to have sensed Sumo's pain and danger and couldn't help but shake. Then, a gust of white air dispersed. 9 dragon-like air currents suddenly spun inside her Dan-si like wind wheels. Good fortune comes from the heart. Out of nowhere, Sumo's footwork suddenly changed and became special. Actually, he had used this footwork technique before. It was just that he had never mastered it and never practiced it intentionally. It was the footwork that the little white pig had taught him when he first entered the Soul Storage Altar Cave. But now, Sumo was only moving forward, or rather, dodging. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. In the air, Sumo took 3 steps. At this moment, Sumo didn't feel anything. But the advanced stage core formation realm cultivator saw everything clearly. Sumo disappeared 3 times in the air and then reappeared at the same time. But Sumo went further and further away. The advanced stage core formation realm cultivator even suspected that his eyes were playing tricks on him. What footwork was that? His sword missed and landed outside the Silent Death Valley. Sumo arrived at the entrance of the Silent Death Valley. Gods come to bury, immortals return to silence. In a trance, Sumo seemed to see those ancient words. Then, he fell into the Silent Death Valley. Immediately after, Sumo felt waves of power drowning him like a tidal wave. Chapter 147. Sumo entered the Silent Death Valley. Outside Silent Death Valley, there was a deathly silence. Sumo was the key to everything. The few core formation realm cultivators who wanted to kill her stopped in their tracks. At this moment, everyone's heart trembled. Sumo really rushed into the Silent Death Valley. The Silent Death Valley. It was a forbidden area for all cultivators in the Bone Mainland. They had never heard of anyone coming out of the Silent Death Valley alive. Deity Tribulation Realm cultivators never returned. Kill Mu Jinghong. The late core formation realm cultivator who had been silent finally spoke. His voice was extremely cold. Originally, their mission was to kill Sumo and retrieve the soul-gathering pearl. But now, Sumo had entered the Silent Death Valley. They didn't dare to go in. Even if Een Zhongmo came, it would be the same, let alone them. Even the founder in the depths of the cave didn't dare to step into the silent death valley. It was a place of death. Therefore, it was impossible to kill Sumo and retrieve the soul-gathering pearl. In that case, they had no choice but to kill Mu Jinghong. The reason was simple. Mu Jinghong was a disciple of the Tianlun sect. Regardless of whether everything was arranged by Yang Tianshao, the identity of the Earth Wheel elders couldn't be exposed. Even though Mu Jinghong already knew that they were from the Earth Chakra Meridian during the battle just now, he still couldn't believe it. However, they couldn't let Mu Jinghong return to the Tianlun mountain. Otherwise, the Earth Wheel disciples would be in a passive position. If Yang Tianshao mobilized a large force, they wouldn't be able to explain themselves. Moreover, they had Feng Luan. An Earth Wheel expert wouldn't be able to withstand the combined forces of two branches. Mu Jinghong's identity was a mystery, but he definitely wasn't an Earth Wheel expert. Whether he was from the Tianlun mountain or a spy from the Selectan sect, Yin Zhongmo suspected him to be. Kill Mu Jinghong. Silence him. As soon as the late-stage core formation cultivator gave the order, all the core formation elders focused their attention on Mu Jinghong. At this moment, there were 5 core formation realm cultivators left. An early core formation realm cultivator and a mid-core formation realm cultivator were dead. Mu Jinghong was covered in blood. Mu Jinghong suffered internal injuries and was stabbed in the ribs. However, that sword did not pierce through her immortal heart. Even so, Mu Jinghong only seemed to be holding on to his last breath of spirit energy. He couldn't hold on at all. How could an arrow at the end of its flight wear mourning clothes? Although killing Mu Jinghong wouldn't change anything, it was better than nothing. Mu Jinghong's blood mystic art wouldn't be able to last more than 15 minutes. At this moment, the red light around her body and the bloodstains on her body were completely indistinguishable. There was a long, mournful cry in the air. At this moment, Blackfeather Shanhong swooped down. Mu Jinghong landed directly on Shenhong's back. In an instant, Heiyu Shenhong's body was covered in a layer of bloody light. That Shenhong was like a phoenix. Mu Jinghong and the divine bird seemed to have become one. Mu Jinghong, today, you won't be able to escape. The late-stage core formation elder said in a low voice. Now that they had failed to complete Yin Zhongmo's mission, all their anger would be directed at Mu Jinghong. At this moment, the 5 core formation cultivators stood in the positions of the 5 elements. After the 7 stars array was broken, they immediately switched to the 5 elements array. The late-stage core formation cultivator raised his hand and recalled his immortal sword. Mu Jinghong must die. This time he would go all out. Killing this extraordinary woman who was known as the Stunning White Bone for 3,000 years was enough to make the 5 core formation cultivators feel proud. Mu Jinghong had always been a legend of the Celestial Wheel and the 5 wheels. The 5 core formation cultivators prepared to strike. Mu Jinghong stood on Shenhong's back with a cold expression. Then, she slowly took out a medicinal pill from her storage pouch and swallowed it. It was just a blood-clotting pill. None of the 5 core formation cultivators moved. Perhaps they were disdainful, perhaps they were shocked, or perhaps they wanted to fight Mu Jinghong for real. In short, there was always a moment of silence before a big battle. Mu Jinghong's eyes were already bloodshot. That was a characteristic of using a blood mystic art. Escape? Ha! Mu Jinghong's face on Shenhong's back giggled. However, the laughter was a bit strange and eerie. Her face was filled with endless mockery and murderous intent. At this moment, Mu Jinghong's expression was completely different from before. You think too much. Didn't Su Mo already enter Silent Death Valley? Mu Jinghong looked at Silent Death Valley. Then the corner of his mouth curled up, flashing a strange smile. Do you really think I can't kill you? Do you really think I'm on the verge of collapse? Mu Jinghong's voice was very calm. When they looked again, the blood-red glow in her eyes was slowly fading. It was as if the blood mystic art was fading. However, what replaced it was a pair of eyes that were as black as ink. Mu Jinghong's eyes were like 2 bottomless black holes, eerie and gloomy. Then, in an instant, Mu Jinghong's long hair suddenly scattered. Her waterfall-like hair moved without any wind. At this moment, the entire sky outside the Silent Death Valley seemed to be changing, darkening, turning blood red. The five core formation cultivators' hearts pounded. This was because they felt an invisible pressure that seemed to come from heaven and earth. It was unstoppable. Suddenly, the wind blew. It was cold and eerie. When they looked again, Mu Jinghong's clothes suddenly turned red. Her hair was also turning red. It wasn't just a simple layer of red light. It was real red. Red clothes, red hair. Mu Jinghong's face was as white as paper, and her eyes were as black as the night. Her mount, the black feather god, was like a reborn phoenix that screeched at the sky. Everyone, you don't understand. I only want him to remember the beauty of me risking my life for him. I don't want him to see me like a demon. So, I give you a chance to be arrogant. But there's no need for that now. He has already entered the Silent Death Valley. Black clothes, red clothes. I don't even know which one is me. Mu Jinghong's voice echoed throughout the Holy Wheel ancient ruins. You're just a bunch of ants. How dare you fight against a god? The red clothes were like blood, and the beauty was like a demon. Although Mu Jinghong stood on the god, she seemed to be standing between heaven and earth. That earth-shattering aura caused everything to submit. Inside the Holy Wheel ancient ruins, her voice echoed. It was like a prophecy, but also like a demon's voice. When they looked again, Mu Jinghong slowly formed a seal with her hands. Then, his 10 fair fingers emitted a deathly pale light. It was an extremely ancient seal. A strange black talisman appeared between Mu Jinghong's brows, making her face look even paler. At that moment, Mu Jinghong didn't look like black clothes at all. She seemed to be a completely different person. Mu Jinghong's lips curled up into a charming smile. Then, she said softly, "Red dust." Die, whoosh, inside the Holy Wheel ancient ruins, the red dust swept up. Outside the Silent Death Valley, it was as if the world had changed. Red sand filled the sky. It was unknown which world it came from, but it filled the world. The red light spread in all directions like a shockwave, covering a radius of a few hundred miles. The five core formation realm cultivators would never have dreamed of such a scene. What flying sword? What array? What core formation realm? All of them melted in the red dust, like a hurricane blowing away dust. The 7 Earth Chakra core formation realm cultivators didn't even have the chance to cast spells. Chapter 148. The boundless secular world rose. The sacred wheel ancient ruins were shocked. 1,000 miles away, the old man in black riding the pig had just controlled the big white pig that was startled by the little white pig. Oomph, oomph. The big white pig's head was covered in cold sweat, and its mane was no longer flowing. It was running in fright, and its body was still trembling. The little white pig's appearance was probably the most terrifying thing to the big white pig. At this moment, the old man in black patted the big white pig's neck and finally calmed it down. Suddenly, the black-robed old man's mind became alert as he sensed that something was wrong. The black-robed elder abruptly turned around and narrowed his eyes. At this moment, outside the Silent Death Valley, red light was shooting into the sky. Red light? A bloodline cultivator? The old man in black's expression changed. A bloodline cultivator actually appeared on the Bone Continent. Could it be a monk from the Immortal Temple walking the Bone Continent? Or did that mute return of 5 wheels? Mute is back. Thinking of this possibility, the old man in black was excited. He waved the long whip in his hand and had the big white pig turn around. The white dragon snorted and ran towards the location of the incident. The big white pig's speed was definitely not slow. It turned into a ray of white light. In a short while it arrived. However, when the old man in black arrived, there was no more smoke. Everything was gone. The old man in black scanned the situation and frowned. This was because when he stood outside the Silent Death Valley, he only saw 7 incomplete white skeletons. On those white skeletons, there were some fresh bloodstains. It was obvious that these cultivators had died not long ago. However, in the blink of an eye, all that was left were incomplete white bones. 7 core formation cultivators were killed in one strike. The old man in black raised an eyebrow. This was definitely not done by Mute. Mute would not use such cruel methods. Just now, what kind of technique was that? The old man in black frowned and thought. Then, the old man in black landed on the ground outside the Silent Death Valley. He bent down and saw that beside the white bones, there were a few strands of red sand. The red sand contained an extremely strange and miraculous power. The black-robed old man watched as the white bones gradually disappeared along with the red sand. In the end, the white bones disappeared and the red sand disappeared. It was as if nothing had happened just now. Even though the black-robed old man had practically traveled the entire white bone continent, he was still extremely shocked. Who on the white bone continent could do that? He really didn't know. The immortal sects of the central region and the southern region could not. The monks of the immortal temple definitely wouldn't use such methods. Could he be the successor of the immortal void realm? That was a possibility. However, the successor of the immortal void realm had not appeared for many years. What was the background of the 7 dead core formation cultivators? The old man in black was not sure. At this moment, he suddenly thought of Sumo and Mu Jinghong. Just now, there was a huge battle here. Where are those 2 little cultivators? Thinking of this, the black-robed old man's divine sense spread out. With his abilities, apart from the Silent Death Valley, his divine sense could cover the entire Holy Wheel Ancient Ruins. However, apart from him, there was no one else in the Holy Wheel Ancient Ruins. Hiss, the black-robed old man gasped, feeling that everything was unimaginable. Could it really be a deity's tribulation cultivator? Then, the black-robed old man's divine sense scanned the Holy Wheel Ancient Ruins 3 times, but he still found nothing. Finally, the black-robed old man sighed and looked up at the stone walls on both sides of the Silent Death Valley's entrance. The gods come to bury the dead. The immortals return to silence. Helplessness. There were cultivators beyond cultivators, and there were immortals beyond immortals. Who dared to say that they were the strongest in this world? The black-robed old man sighed again and bitterly smiled. He shook his head and rode the pig towards the north. Inside the Silent Death Valley, after an unknown amount of time, Sumo slowly woke up. It was afternoon, and the sun was leaning towards the west. When he woke up, Sumo was a little absent-minded, because at this moment it was similar to the first time he woke up in the Silent Death Valley. However, his body did not hurt as much. The broken bamboo pole was still in his hand. Revisiting this place, it felt like a dream. However, the green robe that Sumo was wearing and the storage pouch that hung around his waist reminded him that this was not his first time waking up in the Silent Death Valley. Sumo stood up. The undying air inside his body began to circulate, and his breathing became smooth. There were almost no injuries on his body. There was a slight pain on his back, but it was negligible. Looking back, the entrance of the valley was not far away. However, it was all white, as if it was blocked by a layer of water. Inside the valley and outside the valley were 2 different worlds. Sumo could not feel anything. I wonder how Senior Sister Mu is doing? Sumo stood up and recalled everything that happened before he entered the valley. His face tightened. Could Senior Sister Mu have been killed by those completion-level cultivators? Sumo held onto the broken bamboo pole tightly. However, right now, Sumo could not leave the valley, or else he would be walking right into a trap and all his efforts would be wasted. He inhaled deeply and calmed himself down. Relying on his memory, Sumo walked in the opposite direction of the valley entrance. He did not forget his goal. He wanted to find an opportunity to build his foundation in the Silent Death Valley. Inside the Silent Death Valley, it was still desolate and there was rarely any vegetation. After turning a corner, Sumo arrived at the center of the Silent Death Valley. There were many stone pillars and rows of stones. Those black stones were as bright as mirrors and emitted a faint black light. The symbols and dark lines on the stone pillars and rows of stones were still clear. This was the scene that Sumo was most familiar with. Back then, he woke up on a row of stones. That was definitely an ancient grand formation. The current Sumo was no longer the same as before. He could make a preliminary judgment that this giant stone array was once a giant ancient teleportation array. However, he did not know where it led to or where it was connected to. Later on, it was destroyed for some unknown reason. Natural force? Or was it man-made? There must be an earth-shattering story behind this array. However, at this moment, Sumo did not care about the teleportation array. Instead, he looked into the distance. That was because there should be white skeletons crawling not far away. As expected, after walking for less than 50 steps, Sumo saw the first skeleton. That skeleton was the same as before, crawling forward. An arm was raised and pointed straight ahead, as if there was something ahead that needed his guidance. That was something that the skeleton was unwilling to die. Originally, Sumo wanted to go around the skeleton and walk forward. However, he suddenly felt that the skeleton seemed to be different from before. Why was its white light a little unnatural? Hence, Sumo bent down and frowned slightly. He stretched out his left hand and brushed it gently. Sumo's hand actually brushed empty air. Looking again, as Sumo's hand brushed past, that skeleton actually disappeared. There was originally nothing. An afterimage. Chapter 149. A shadow flashed, and the white bones disappeared. For a moment, Sumo was stunned on the spot. Just now, when he saw the white skeleton, he felt that it was a little special, because the luster of the white bones was a little dim. Sure enough, when he touched it with his hand, it was actually just an afterimage. Then where were the original white skeletons? Sumo remembered very clearly that when he first entered the Silent Death Valley, he had used the bamboo pole to deliberately hit those skeletons. Those white bones were definitely real and not an afterimage. But what was going on in front of him? The first white skeleton disappeared. Sumo had to continue forward. This time, the feeling that Sumo entered the valley seemed to be very different from the last time, because Sumo did not see the layers of fog rising in the valley, nor did he feel that his footsteps were heavier. Soon, Sumo saw the second white skeleton. The light of that white skeleton was also relatively dim. This time, Sumo directly waved the bamboo pole. The second white skeleton was actually also an afterimage and instantly disappeared. Surprised, Sumo quickened his pace. The third, the fourth, the fifth. In short, Sumo walked all the way to the ninth white skeleton. This was his limit in the past, because previously when he walked here, he felt that he could not move at all, and he even had hallucinations. At that time, he felt that all skeletons were attacking him. In the end, he vomited blood, so he did not go further. But now, Sumo did not feel the slightest discomfort. Instead, the unwithering chi in his body was very active. One must know that back then, Sumo was immortal and did not feel that the Silent Death Valley was special. However, now that he was a cultivator, he felt that there was an extremely special spiritual energy in this Silent Death Valley. Taking a breath, he felt extremely comfortable. Sumo cultivated the unwithering technique and seemed to like this kind of aura the most. It was unclear. Therefore, Sumo's Dan-si was very active, as if it was cultivating on its own. The 9 skeletons all left only afterimages. This made Sumo feel very strange. Where did the original skeletons go? But no matter what, Sumo had to continue walking in the direction of the bones. He wanted to see if there were other skeletons like this. More importantly, he wanted to see where the skeleton was pointing. Sumo continued forward. At this time, the valley was finally filled with a bit of mist. This situation was extremely similar to that time. Everything seemed to have returned to its original state. Sumo wanted to continue on the path that she had never finished before. Soon, Sumo saw the 10th skeleton. The white bones emitted a faint white light, like immortal light. This time, Sumo touched it with the bamboo pole again. Thud thud. The real thing. The broken bamboo pole finally came into contact with a real skeleton, and not just an afterimage. Sumo bent over and touched it with her hand. The white bones were slightly cold and emitted a faint chill. At this moment, Sumo could not help but gasp, because he suddenly thought of the 9 missing skeletons and wondered if they had anything to do with him. Silent Death Valley, a forbidden area for cultivators. For thousands of years, not a single person had entered. From what Sumo knew, there was really no cultivator who dared to enter Silent Death Valley. The only person who entered Silent Death Valley might be him. And those white skeletons would definitely not disappear for no reason. He pondered for a moment. Sumo first took out an ordinary immortal sword from his robes, then directly slashed at the white skeleton. Clank, a soft sound. That ordinary immortal sword was actually bounced back by the white skeleton and directly broken into two pieces. So, Sumo took out the furious slaying immortal sword. That was a nascent soul-level magic weapon. Sumo once again slashed at the white skeleton. However, when Sumo's sword was only 3 inches away from the white skeleton, it was directly fixed in the void. It could not be cut at all. Sumo's guess was right. Those skeletons, emitting a faint white light, were definitely existences that could be called immortal bones. Sumo could not destroy them at all. Moreover, Sumo guessed that not only could he not destroy them, even the legendary deities, tribulation cultivators, might not have a way to destroy these white skeletons. Perhaps these white skeletons were deities, tribulation cultivators. However, why were the 9 skeletons only afterimages left? What kind of power made them disappear? Sumo did not completely understand. Could it really be related to him? However, he only walked past the 9 skeletons in Silent Death Valley. Other than that, Sumo did nothing. At that time, he was immortal, and it was already good enough that he could survive. Sumo speculated in his heart, but his feet did not stop. He continued forward. The fog in the valley gradually rose and became thicker. However, Sumo still did not feel as heavy as last time. This time, it was the opposite. Sumo felt that his steps were getting lighter and lighter. The undying chi in his body was even more joyous. Hua, hua. In Sumo's dansi, big waves surged full of joy. The 9 streams of chi that could not fuse were even more playful, like a dragon returning to the sea. This feeling was something that Sumo had not felt for a long time. As Sumo moved forward, he almost walked into the fog. In less than a quarter of an hour, he saw the same 8 skeletons. His fingers moved forward, and his head was raised. Everything was exactly the same. Sumo did not know how many such skeletons there were in this Silent Death Valley. However, in front of the 18th skeleton, Sumo stopped. Although he did not feel any heavy footsteps, nor did he feel flustered or suffocated. It was just that the fog in the mountains was very thick. Sumo could barely see 10 feet in front of him. However, Sumo chose to stop and then took a deep breath. After identifying the direction, he suddenly turned around and walked back. At this time, if there were people in Silent Death Valley, they would definitely not understand what Sumo was doing. However, Sumo knew what he was doing. Step by step, Sumo retreated according to the original route. Finally, Sumo retreated in front of the 10th skeleton. Stand still. At that moment, Sumo felt that the aura in his dansi was even more joyous. Sumo wanted to verify the conjecture in his heart. He first stared at the 10th skeleton, and then he found that the luster of the 10th skeleton was dimming little by little. It was like a candlelight that was about to complete its mission and was being extinguished little by little, dimming little by little, dying little by little. In the end, the luster of the skeleton became the same as the previous 9 skeletons that Sumo saw. Sumo bent down and used his hand to probe. Whoosh! As if there was a whirlwind, the afterimage of the 10th skeleton suddenly dissipated. So that was it. Sumo took another deep breath. He understood, because his dansi had already started to become abnormal. In the instant that the 10th set of bones disappeared, Sumo's dansi surged with a strange wave. A mysterious force suddenly appeared. Then there was a second, third, fourth, a total of 9 auras. They gathered around the half of the skeleton immortal root. Thus, Sumo turned around and continued forward. The afterimage of the 11th skeleton dissipated under his bamboo pole, then the 12th, the 13th, until the 18th skeleton. Along the way, Sumo was silent. At that moment, endless sorrow and pity rose in Sumo's heart. Was this the meaning of the existence of these skeletons. They were completing a sacred mission. They died unwillingly. When people died, their souls were gone, but their bones were not destroyed, just for the sake of that sloppy youth who would come through time after time. So they were waiting for him. At that moment, Sumo inexplicably closed his eyes. Chapter 150. Silent Death Valley was filled with fog. In the middle of the fog, a young man in green was sitting cross-legged. His eyes were slightly closed, and he was concealing his spirit and chi. That young man was, of course, Sumo. At this moment, he was sitting on the path to the 19th white skeleton. Inside his body, there were already 9 waves surging. Those 9 auras clustered around the half-skeleton immortal root. Sumo understood that these 9 auras came from the 9 skeletons. Sumo finally understood many things. Why was it that his soul was shaken when he reached the 9th skeleton? Because he was immortal at that time and could not bear it. But now, he was a perfected cultivator of the 9th level of chi refinement. He had an immortal bone and the secret technique, the unwithering art. Why was it that after he left Silent Death Valley and ate that half bun, his entire body was in pain? Why was it that he had a special white light immortal root, and his talents surpassed the 5 chakras, so he could advance rapidly before reaching foundation establishment? Sumo used a little more than a year to achieve what many cultivators could not achieve in several years, or even decades. Because when he entered Silent Death Valley, he unknowingly absorbed the aura and power of the first 9 skeletons. The pain was fusing. Sumo's extraordinary talent and strange immortal root actually came from the inheritance of Silent Death Valley. The power of the first 9 skeletons had already taken root in Sumo's body. However, all of this was far from enough, and the inheritance was not complete. So now, there was only half a skeleton in Sumo's core C. Sumo's foundation establishment still needed the power of Silent Death Valley, and other powers were useless. Only by reaching foundation establishment with white bones could one reach immortal Tao. At this moment, Sumo was sitting cross-legged in Silent Death Valley. He was using the unwithering art. The magical unwithering art and the aura of Silent Death Valley actually complemented each other. Everything seemed to have been arranged. Under the guidance of the unwithering art, the 9 white bone auras in his core C instantly entered Sumo's half-skeleton immortal root. Faintly, Sumo felt that there was a slight change in the immortal root. It seemed that the half-skeleton immortal root had become more solid. However, this couldn't build a foundation. What Sumo needed was to build a foundation. The 9 streams of dragon-like spiritual energy, which he couldn't merge before, were still swimming in his pill sea, but he couldn't tame them. Actually, Sumo didn't quite understand. Even a flying sword of the nascent soul level couldn't hurt such a powerful immortal bone. Could it be that the power it contained was still not enough for him to build his foundation? Or could it be that he still needed time to truly integrate those powers, and he had only scratched the surface so far? However, Sumo didn't have much of a choice. He didn't care how much power he could absorb from the 9 corpses. However, he still needed power. The more, the better. Sumo needed to build her foundation and even higher cultivation, because that was the only way he could return a 5 wheels. If Mu Jinghong died, Sumo had to avenge her. Thinking of Mu Jinghong, Sumo slowly opened her eyes and clenched her fists. If Mu Jinghong died, it would be because of him. If I don't get my revenge, I'm not a man. He wanted to flatten Earth Wheel Mountain. However, Sumo needed power. Thus, Sumo got up and continued to move forward with a cold expression. If he could obtain power in the Silent Death Valley, then, no matter what path it was, he was willing to walk it. The fog was getting thicker and thicker. However, Sumo didn't care at all. In the end, Sumo couldn't even see the situation a dozen steps away. Even Sumo's divine sense was cut off in the fog. The fog was very strange. Fortunately, the distance between the skeletons was only a few dozen steps. Sumo followed the guidance of the skeletons and moved forward step by step. Sumo was very determined and didn't hesitate. The 19th skeleton, the 20th skeleton, the 21st skeleton, Sumo, still walked back and forth according to the pattern of every 9 skeletons turning around. All the results were the same. As long as Sumo walked to a place, all the skeletons turned into shadows and dissipated. Then, they turned into waves and streams of power in Sumo's Dansi. The unwithering spiritual art continued to circulate in Sumo's Dansi. Now, Sumo had almost reached the highest level of unwithering chi. His next step seemed to be to cultivate the unwithering bones. At the same time, Sumo still didn't feel any discomfort. Instead, it was as if he was absorbing the spiritual power of an endless supply of spiritual food. Everything was going smoothly. Every time he absorbed 9 skeletons, Sumo had to sit cross-legged and then absorb and digest them. The 27th, the 36th, the 45th, the half-skeleton immortal root in Sumo's Dansi was constantly growing. At this time, it could no longer be called half an immortal root, because it was already a complete human form. The head, torso, and 4 limbs had already appeared and were slowly solidifying. The silent Death Valley was silent. Sumo was like a scavenger picking up treasures. During this process, Sumo almost lost track of time and forgot about his journey. He didn't know how long he had used, and he didn't know how far he had walked. It was just a process of walking, picking up, and absorbing. The concept of time and space seemed to have melted in the fog. The fog was still there, and the sun couldn't be seen. Sumo's body and mind were undergoing a baptism in this process. The 63rd skeleton's shadow disappeared. Sumo sat cross-legged once again, breathing returning to 1. At this time, the white bone immortal root in his Dansi had basically solidified. It was just a sliver away from completion. Another 9 waves rose, and another 9 streams of immortal energy returned to the root. Boom! Boom! Sumo's body suddenly shook. The change in quantity had finally caused a change in quality. Inside the Dansi, thunder roared, and huge waves rolled to the sky. A completely complete, solidified white bone immortal root stood in Sumo's Dansi. It was a skeleton that emitted white light, and it actually had a hint of disdain. The immortal root was white bone. Sumo's immortal root, not to mention the white bone mainland, even in the entire Pure Land, it was probably one of a kind. Sumo's art of immortality was still circulating without stopping. Looking again, the white bone immortal skeleton was slowly sitting cross-legged, and its hands were crossed over its Dansi. It was as if a cultivator was meditating and cultivating. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, the waves in Sumo's Dansi rolled. That Dansi was actually expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. The moment the white bone immortal root sat down, the entire Dansi suddenly expanded by several times. At this time, if a cultivator saw this, they would definitely be extremely shocked. At the same time, the 9 streams of dragon-like spiritual energy that Sumo couldn't merge before were all coiled under the white bone immortal root. At first, they were only swimming slowly, but gradually, they began to tangle with each other. Then, each stream of spiritual energy seemed to have a slight change. They really turned into dragons. 1, 2, 3. Every 3 dragon-shaped spiritual energy formed a group, twisting into a 3-colored mystical dragon, but the head was still there. Then, the 3-colored mystical dragons connected from head to tail, forming a circle, and finally formed a 9 dragons immortal altar. Boom! Hua! The white bone immortal root sat steadily on the 9 dragons immortal altar. Boom! Boom! The Dansi shook, and endless foundational energy surged out, almost unstoppable. Sumo's heart shook. Chapter 151. Foundation Establishment. Foundation Establishment finally appeared in Sumo's Dansi. The 9 dragons' immortal platform floated above the Dansi. The white skeleton sat steadily on the 9 dragons' immortal platform. Wisps and wisps of foundation establishment chi gushed out from the white bone immortal root. Then, it flowed into the Dan Sea. It was as if the foundation establishment energy wanted to fill the entire Dan Sea. In theory, a cultivator who had just reached foundation establishment should be able to expel some impurities from their body. However, Sumo did not go through that process. The reason for that was because his body had already been tempered. In fact, there were even immortal bones in his bones. In fact, everything about Sumo met the requirements of foundation establishment. Only his Dan Sea had not reached immortal foundation establishment. Now that his skeleton immortal foundation was complete, his immortal foundation was formed. Sumo was like a fish in water. Using the art of everlasting, Sumo felt that his skeleton immortal foundation was producing foundation establishment energy continuously. It was a very special feeling, because the immortal foundation was the foundation of everything. Cultivators actually needed to cultivate continuously in order to nourish their immortal foundation. Otherwise, Sumo's situation would not occur. However, Sumo's immortal foundation was really releasing foundation establishment energy. Sumo's heart skipped a beat. According to what he knew about foundation establishment, everything should return to normal after the foundation establishment was successful. Because ordinary cultivators needed time to stabilize their cultivation and solidify their foundation establishment. However, Sumo's Dan Sea did not calm down. Whoosh, whoosh. Instead, the spirit tide was endless. Each wave was higher than the one before and tighter than the one before. Sumo's Dan Sea was several times larger than before, but the foundation establishment energy was still full. At that moment, Sumo suddenly realized something. The White Bone's immortal foundation was formed, and the Nine Dragons' immortal platform was floating in the sea. However, his foundation establishment energy kept rising. That probably meant he was not just at foundation establishment. As expected, Sumo was right. 63 skeleton immortal bones returned to his body. How could he only reach foundation establishment? Whoosh, whoosh. The spirit tide was like the wind, whistling through the Dan Sea. Sumo felt that her realm was still increasing, and it was increasing in a straight line. It was a kind of irresistible and unobstructed cultivation. This was far beyond Sumo's expectations. Foundation establishment. The foundation was stable. Middle stage foundation establishment. Late stage foundation establishment. Foundation establishment great circle. Sumo's realm actually soared all the way to the core formation realm. At that moment, if it weren't for Sumo's strong willpower, she would have fainted. That couldn't be considered cultivation at all, but a kind of infusion. It was a direct increase in the realm. Of course, Sumo had met all the requirements before this. He had a powerful immortal physique, an ocean of Dan that was comparable to the completion level, and the technique of the undying cycle. Most importantly, he had melded with 63 sets of white bones. As for how much energy those 63 skeletons contained, no one could say for sure. Rumble, rumble, the great circle of foundation establishment late stage. Sumo's Dan Sea rumbled again, as if the earth was shaking. At this moment, the nine-dragon immortal altar began to spin rapidly, along with the white skeleton that was sitting in a lotus position. The roar of the 9 dragons shook the clouds. Looking again, all the foundational energy inside Sumo's body was being mobilized. Then it followed the movement of the white bone immortal root. Inside her Dan Sea, a rapidly spinning and compressing wind was forming. At that moment, Sumo instantly felt his Dan Sea start to become empty, because all the spiritual energy was being sucked away by the white bone immortal root. Slowly, the wind completely gathered on the white bone immortal root's crossed hands, forming a fist-sized ball of light. The light was blinding, lighting up the entire Dan Sea. That is, at this moment, Sumo's heart was filled with excitement, but she also didn't dare to believe it. However, in this world, unbelievable things often happen. What Sumo could do was to concentrate and use the technique of the undying cycle to coordinate with everything that was happening. Since I'm here, I'll take things as they come. The ball of light continued to spin in the white bone immortal root's hands. Round and round after round. Sumo didn't know how long it had been spinning. She only saw that the ball of light gradually solidify and become smaller. From a size of fist, it finally became the size of an egg. That was the condensation of all of Sumo's power. At this moment, Sumo was a little afraid that the egg of light would suddenly disappear, and then she would be left with nothing. Luckily, Sumo's worry didn't come to pass. At this moment, if there was someone in Silent Death Valley, they would see a green-robed youth sitting in the fog with his eyes closed. His expression was peaceful, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. Outside Silent Death Valley, the sun rose and the moon set. It had already been 3 days and 3 nights. And outside Silent Death Valley, in the clouds 100,000 feet above, there was a red-clothed woman looking down at Silent Death Valley. It was the red-robed, red-haired Mu Jinghong. Her expression was demonic and cold, but when she looked at Silent Death Valley, there was a hint of eagerness and anticipation. She was anticipating and waiting for something. But she had already been standing here for 3 days and 3 nights. Even though her cultivation was heaven-defying, she knew that she couldn't take half a step into Silent Death Valley, because she might be torn to pieces by the power of Silent Death Valley. She wasn't Sumo, and she wasn't someone chosen by Silent Death Valley. Silent Death Valley was an existence that she couldn't touch. Sumo, I hope that you don't have to worry about your fate. The red-robed Mu Jinghong smiled very gently. It has already been 3 days and 3 nights. If you don't come out, then I have to go. Then she turned and ran outside the sacred wheel ancient ruins. As she walked, her red hair and red clothes faded away bit by bit. Soon, Mu Jinghong turned back into her appearance when she was on 5 wheels, and then she ran in the direction of 5 wheels. The sacred wheel ancient ruins returned to its original loneliness. It was as if nothing had happened, and there were no traces of anything. And Sumo was in Silent Death Valley, sitting peacefully as before. Everything in the Pill Sea was the same as before. Boom, crack, but suddenly the egg-sized ball of light stopped spinning and suddenly exploded. Who? Tens of thousands of golden lights shone on the Pill Sea. That ball of light was really like an egg breaking its shell. After the golden lights disappeared, there was actually a golden core inside. At that moment, Sumo really felt a little dizzy. Golden core? The power of Silent Death Valley actually helped her to form her core? Sumo couldn't believe this was real. But in the next second, Sumo immediately believed it, because the golden lights instantly turned into the power of the core and once again filled the Pill Sea. And that golden core directly embedded itself into the Pill Sea of the white skeleton. The entire white skeleton was instantly plated with a layer of gold. Early stage of core formation. Middle stage of core formation. Peak stage of core formation. Sumo's cultivation level soared again. However, she didn't break through to peak stage of core formation. Even so, Sumo felt as if she had gone from a beggar to a king. Whoosh, inside the Pill Sea, huge waves rolled, and then everything gradually calmed down. Sumo's cultivation level finally stabilized. Peak stage of core formation. Chapter 152. Completion level. Before this, Sumo would never have imagined that he would be able to complete his core in the Silent Death Valley. One should know that the meditational stage and the completion stage are 2 different stages. Many cultivators spend their entire lives and cannot surpass them. However, Sumo's breakthrough seemed to happen in the blink of an eye. All the good luck seemed to fall from the sky. Perhaps, sometimes, one really cannot fight against fate. Sumo's luck was enough to make countless people collapse. At this moment, Sumo stood up and looked at the fog before him. Completion cultivator. Sumo's entire temperament was changing without a sound. Wearing a green robe and holding a bamboo pole, Sumo appeared to be out of this world. That kind of change was imperceptible from the inside to the outside. Sumo continued forward. He had already absorbed 63 immortal bones, but he didn't know if there were more ahead of him. At this moment, the fog behind Sumo was slowly dispersing. Turning around, Sumo was a little startled, because he seemed to be in a deserted village. This deserted village was located inside a valley. Sumo seemed to have been walking in the village. There's a village inside the Silent Death Valley? Sumo was a little startled. Looking closely, the village seemed very strange, because it looked like a village but not at the same time. It looked like a village because there were many courtyards around it that looked like homes. It didn't look like a village because the walls of the courtyards had already collapsed. Many houses were no longer recognizable and were in ruins. Or perhaps this was a city that was close to being destroyed. Whether it was a deserted village or a city, they all had an ancient and vicissitude of life. Everything was far too long ago. Many things had already been destroyed. However, Sumo didn't find anything new. Thus, he turned around and continued to walk in the direction the last skeleton pointed. Sumo once again entered the fog. Now that he was a completion-level cultivator, he was more confident and at ease. The fear he felt when he first entered the Silent Death Valley was long gone. The nervousness he felt earlier was also gone. The pain of not being able to reach the foundational level was now a thing of the past. Just a few meters away, Sumo saw the 64th skeleton. The posture of this skeleton was no different from the previous ones. However, Sumo couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. This was because he discovered that this skeleton was different from the other skeletons he had seen before. The 63 skeletons before him were all emitting faint white light, and this 64th skeleton actually had a hint of golden light mixed in with the white light. These bones leveled up. Sumo reacted instinctively. Would he still be able to absorb these white bones? Would he still level up after absorbing them? I'm already at the consummation of the middle stage of the core formation realm. Could it be that I'll directly reach the nascent soul realm? Just thinking about it made Sumo tremble. However, this advancement is too fast. Will I be struck by lightning? Sumo's imagination ran wild again. Sumo walked around the 64th skeleton and headed in the direction it pointed. Sumo took a detour around the 64th bone and headed in the direction it pointed. This skeleton was exactly the same as the 64th skeleton. This skeleton was exactly the same as the 64th skeleton. The faint white light was mixed with golden light. Sumo felt that he was right. Those skeletons leveled up. The current skeletons were definitely one level higher than the previous ones. But how many skeletons were there? Sumo walked all the way to the 72nd skeleton. Then he walked back like before. Very quickly, he returned to the 64th skeleton. At this time, Sumo realized the difference. Because the luster on the 64th skeleton didn't dim at all. Sumo touched it with his hand. Sure enough, that skeleton wasn't a shadow. It was a real skeleton. Nothing was like before, where he absorbed the skeleton as soon as he walked past it and turned it into a shadow. Sumo was a little disappointed, but he felt relieved. After all, the crazy growth of his cultivation was something to worry about. The skeletons felt different from before. The skeletons in front of him were slightly cold. However, this set of white bones carried traces of warmth, as if they hadn't died yet and still had residual warmth. This made Sumo exclaim in amazement. Sumo examined the remaining 8 skeletons one by one. The result was the same. The 8 skeletons weren't affected by Sumo's arrival either. Sumo's Dansi and immortal root didn't change. It seemed that he couldn't absorb the power of the skeletons without limit. Sumo smiled bitterly and laughed at himself. Why was he still thinking about nascent soul? However, Sumo was content. However, since it was possible, he still wanted to explore the Silent Death Valley. Although Sumo couldn't absorb the skeletons, the mist behind Sumo started to dissipate. Sumo continued forward, and one after another, he saw 9 more skeletons. The 9 skeletons were in the same posture as before, but their bodies were completely glowing with a golden light. 91 skeletons. Sumo continued forward, but after 100 steps, he didn't see the 82nd skeleton. No more bones. Sumo returned to the side of the 81st skeleton and waited for the mist to dissipate. The mist covered the sky and gradually dissipated. Thus, everything suddenly became clear. The scene in front of him shocked Sumo, because when all the mist dissipated, he could finally see the whole picture. As it turned out, Sumo had already entered another valley at some point in time. It was a strangely shaped valley. The entire valley seemed to be dozens of miles wide. The entire valley was in the shape of a funnel, and Sumo had been moving towards the bottom of the funnel. On the hillside of the valley, there were many ancient traces, like an ancient village, like an ancient city. And the remaining 18 skeletons were arranged in a spiral shape, one pointing to the other, and the direction that the skeleton pointed to was the center of the funnel. The distance between each skeleton was definitely more than 10 steps. However, Sumo didn't understand why, in the mist just now, he encountered a skeleton after 50 or 60 steps. He couldn't explain it clearly. Perhaps the mist changed the feeling of time and space. Looking again, the bottom of the valley was a flat ground. And in the center of the valley, there was an ancient building that looked like a temple, but not a temple. But Sumo could only call it an ancient temple. The ancient temple wasn't big, and the two old doors were mottled. The door knocker was even more rusty. There were a total of 3 stone steps under the temple door, and they all looked a little rotten. How many years has this ancient temple been built? Sumo asked in his heart, which came first, the deserted village, the city, or the ancient temple? At the same time, Sumo couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, because he suddenly saw that under the walls of the ancient temple, there were actually countless skulls lined up side by side. This ancient temple was built with skulls as its foundation. Those skulls all emitted a white light with a trace of golden light. The entire ancient temple looked quite terrifying and strange. And what shocked Sumo even more was that around the ancient temple, there were 81 graves. Chapter 153. Deep in the mountains, white bones, ancient tombs. Perhaps everyone has a tomb in their heart that buries their undead. However, when Sumo saw the 81 tombs, his eyes and heart were filled with awe. Whose tomb was this? Inside the Silent Death Valley, there were 81 tombs. They really were tombs. They looked very ordinary. However, Sumo knew that they were not ordinary. Could it be that those immortal skeletons wanted to climb into those tombs? There were no tombstones in front of the tombs. Perhaps there used to be tombstones, but they were long gone. Or perhaps these tombs were tombs, and tombs, but now they were just tombs. Wind and rain will always blow away the wind and rain. Nothing could resist the passage of time. After tens of thousands of years of change, the soul and the bones were gone, and there were no traces left. The return. In the end, all that was left was a lonely temple and a lonely tomb. Everyone was gone. Sumo stopped for a while, unable to describe what he was feeling. Deep inside his soul, there was an indescribable emotion. After a long sigh, Sumo flapped his robe and headed towards the temple. He naturally wanted to see what was inside the temple. Just what kind of secret was inside the Silent Death Valley? The fog dissipated and Sumo's vision widened. Therefore, he didn't need to take a detour and headed straight for the temple. Actually, right now, Sumo was standing next to the 81st immortal skeleton. He was already at the bottom of the valley. At the completion level, Sumo could travel hundreds of miles with one step. However, Sumo's cultivation method was inexplicably suppressed in this Silent Death Valley. Right now, he was about 100 meters away from the temple. If he was at the completion level, he could reach it in one step. But now, Sumo could only walk like a mortal, one step at a time. Finally, Sumo stood before the door of the temple. Therefore, he once again checked out the ancient temple. The walls of the temple were tall and blocked everything. The 2 old doors were made of wood. They were old and mottled, but they didn't decay. That was truly a miracle. The door knocker was rusty, and it was unknown how old it was. Other than that, there were no other decorations on the ancient door. The skull under the walls of the ancient temple gave off a faint golden glow. The existence of the ancient temple seemed to be suppressing those skulls. As for those ancient tombs, they were scattered around like stars in the sky, seemingly in a mess. Sumo couldn't find any clues. However, at this moment, Sumo felt an inexplicable calling force coming from the ancient temple. His body involuntarily moved forward. The 3 steps were in tatters. Sumo even suspected that if he were to step on it, it would be smashed to pieces. Talk, talk, talk. Thus, Sumo used the bamboo pole in her hand to knock on the stairs a few times. The sound was thick and solid. It seemed like the stairs could still bear the weight. Sumo stepped onto the first step. The moment Sumo stepped onto the steps, the originally dilapidated steps suddenly emitted a strange glow. Faintly, Sumo seemed to see a 6-colored brilliance circulating within the 3 steps. The 6-colored brilliance seemed to be nurturing many unknown things. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. With every step Sumo took, he seemed to be in a trance. At that moment, he seemed to have gone through a very long time. Leisurely, floating, Sumo seemed to have an out-of-body moment, as if he had gone through thousands of tribulations to reach this place. Then, Sumo stood in front of the temple. At that moment, Sumo felt refreshed. His mind was clear, as if the clouds were dispelled and he could see the sun. So magical. Sumo looked down at the 3 steps again. The 6-colored brilliance had already dissipated, and the 3 steps had returned to their original dilapidated appearance. The 3 steps seemed to be the same throughout the ages. Unfortunately, Sumo didn't know that countless mighty immortals had died on these 3 steps. Many people had sunk in 3 lifetimes, unable to stand firm. And he, Sumo, had endless fortune. Only those who were fated in 3 lifetimes could step on these 3 steps. Creak, creak. Right at this moment, the 2 ancient model doors of the temple slowly opened on their own. Sumo was stunned. His body seemed to move forward uncontrollably. He almost floated and walked directly into the ancient temple. The fog rolled like a sea of clouds. The fog in the temple only started to dissipate the moment Sumo entered. Gradually, everything could be seen. Sumo looked around. The ancient temple wasn't big. It seemed to be just a courtyard. Facing the 2 doors was a large cauldron. It was 2 zhang tall and 1 zhang wide. It was pitch black. Its color couldn't be seen, but it looked simple and heavy. On it, there were many ancient runes that Sumo didn't understand. Cauldron? Sumo was slightly stunned, because the cauldron in the ancient temple looked almost the same as the soul-concealing cauldron in his storage bag. However, this cauldron didn't have the words soul-concealing. It was almost an enlarged version of the soul-concealing cauldron. Sumo circled around the cauldron twice. The cauldron was empty. Nothing else could be seen. Sumo used the bamboo pole to knock on the cauldron. Clang, clang. The sound of metal reverberated. It was clear and melodious. But the cauldron didn't move an inch. Nothing else happened. On the left side of the courtyard, there was a withered tree with a bell hanging on it. The bell was covered in dust. It had no luster. There were even cobwebs. It hadn't been rung for a long time. Everything was filled with death. On the right side of the courtyard, there was another tree. However, the tree was alive. The trunk of the tree was uneven. The bark was gray and smooth. The crown was wide. Its branches drooped like whiskers. The leaves were sparse. It was thick and dense. Good tree, Sumo sincerely praised. Unfortunately, he didn't know what kind of tree it was. This tree grew in the dilapidated ancient temple. It formed a strong contrast. In the dead silence, there was endless vitality. Vitality was born in the atmosphere of death. The main hall of the ancient temple wasn't grand. From Sumo's point of view, it was just 2 dilapidated houses, the paint on the walls peeling, the eaves broken. At this time, the doors and windows of the 2 ancient houses were tightly shut, but there seemed to be a faint purple light flickering. Sumo continued to walk forward, wanting to enter the ancient house to take a look. There might be many secrets in the ancient house, but at this moment, whoosh, the sky above the ancient temple suddenly lit up, and then a dot of purple light suddenly spread out. At that moment, It was as if a curtain of the sky was slowly opening in the void. Purple light, black light, green light, accompanied by the sound of thousands of tsunamis, the howling of the wind. Sumo was shocked, but fortunately, it was all just an image. At that moment, Sumo stood in the ancient temple. It was as if he was looking at an image in the sky. In the void, there was a great battle going on. But those images seemed to have faded with the passage of time. She couldn't see the faces of the people, only a bit of color and outline. There were 3 people, 1 red and 2 black. They flew up into the sky and dove into the ground, using great techniques. Black and white light, red flame, and purple light intertwined. It was like an unparalleled battle. You are existences abandoned by the gods. A man's voice echoed, like an oracle, and I will not save you. Chapter 154. The Scene in the Sky. The red-clothed man's long hair scattered as he laughed heartily. There seemed to be a pair of blood-red wings on his back. The wings spread out for dozens of feet, like a demon triumphing over a demon. In the sky, red light shot up to the sky, and there were countless stone tablets. Tomb of Gods. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The red-clothed man's body emitted endless red light. From Sumo's point of view, he was a peerless cultivator. That was a technique that he didn't even dare to imagine. Was that a battle between immortals? Sumo pondered. In the sky, in an instant, the earth shook and the earth cracked. There were rivers with raging waves, mountains with rocks flying, palaces with bricks and tiles turning into smoke. It was a battle between the end of the world. Roar, roar. The storm swept across like a dragon's roar. At this moment, Sumo knew that what he saw was only an image, but he still felt his soul trembling. That was definitely a battle that he couldn't watch. Sumo believed that if that battle really happened in front of him, he would be instantly killed. Not even his ashes would be left. That was an existence that he couldn't even touch. Everything in the sky was a bit chaotic and unstable, as if a part of the image was disrupted and incomplete. Looking again, a black-clothed cultivator stepped on a mystical halo and broke through the layers of black fog. The sky changed color, and everything turned into purple light, sweeping through the entire world like a tsunami. Then, the black-clothed cultivator reached out with his hand. It seemed to be a pale and slender hand, with 5 fingers forming a claw with invincible power. It directly pierced through the red-clothed man's head. Puff! Ah, the red-clothed man screamed. The blood-red wings had already disappeared, and blood spurted out from the top of his head like a pillar. But in the end, only a skeleton was left of his body. The white skeleton was emitting a blood-red golden light. It was very strange. Then, the skeleton began to dissipate from the bottom to the top. In the end, only a skull was left, which instantly turned into white smoke. Save me. But his voice was still echoing. At that moment, Sumo felt that the entire ancient temple was filled with the unwilling voice of the red-clothed man. He was unwilling to live, and he was unwilling to die. However, could anyone really hear his cries? Did someone really save him? At that moment, Sumo really wanted to help him, but it was impossible. Then the clouds in the sky drifted and drifted. Sumo kept staring at the sky. He instinctively felt that there should be more images appearing. Sure enough, after a while, reincarnation of the 3 realms, demons are still eternal. I hope you and I can meet again in the next 3 realms reincarnation. Intermittent sounds came from the sky. It seemed to be a conversation between 2 men, buzzing and reverberating. However, Sumo was baffled by what he heard. It was because he didn't know whose voice it was at all, nor did he know what kind of incomparable battle was going on. The sky curtain opened again. There were 2 people standing in the void. One was dressed in green, while the other was dressed in black. Both of their auras were shocking as the heavens as they stood facing each other. Behind each of them was a circle. The only difference was that one circle was to the left, the other to the right. Sumo couldn't see clearly what the circle was. Instantly, the 2 of them unleashed their spells at the same time. One green and one black. They were like 2 gods of creation. They seemed to control the future of this world. thousands of stars. The earth trembled. Whoosh, boom. Sumo watched helplessly as one of the continents was forcibly separated. There seemed to be a natural moat between the two continents. It was so misty that it was impossible to see clearly. And in the void of the sky curtain, 3 white lights appeared like 3 suns. And there was a mountain floating above the river of stars. That mountain was a white mountain. White mountain. Sumo remembered that he had seen that kind of mountain before. Yes, that kind of mountain had appeared in the ancient painting in Mu Jinghong's cave abode. White mountain, sea, lotus. At this moment, the sky curtain was filled with pale light, as if it was the end of the world. The green and white light suddenly flashed. 9 rays of light shot up into the sky. A black shadow seemed to fall into a round sea, as if it had died. But 2 rays of divine light directly penetrated the round sea. Thousands of rays of green light suddenly shot up from the top of the green-robed man's head, covering everything. At that moment, the entire sky curtain was filled with green light. The black light gradually disappeared. I promise you, I will let you rest in eternal peace. The green-robed man's words were filled with an inexplicable sadness. Then, the sky curtain darkened, and then thousands of stars shone. White mountain, sea, lotus. All of these were like the ancient paintings that Sumo had seen. However, there was no withered tree in the sky curtain, nor was there a beautiful black-robed man. At the peak of White Mountain, there was really an ancient and colorful ship. Sumo looked at all the changes in a daze, speechless. He began to feel inexplicably annoyed in his heart. It seemed that he did not want to see that scene. However, suddenly, a ray of light appeared in the sky curtain. In an instant, as if the gates of heaven had opened, it covered half of the sky. Endless mysterious light flew over like the sun. The natural phenomenon caused an uproar. Wherever the light shone, it was as if the world had changed. That scene was extremely familiar to Sumo. Wasn't that the scene that he had seen or experienced outside Peach Blossom Town? Yes, there was also a dilapidated temple outside Peach Blossom Town. Was this the intertwining of time and space, or was everything reappearing? How could the scene outside Peach Blossom Town appear in the sky curtain? Me. The ancient song that Sumo had heard before resounded between heaven and earth again. The syllables were like Sanskrit, like Tao, but not Sanskrit. The sound of heaven and earth echoed, and all things seemed to be tangible, like ripples in the void. Everything was almost exactly the same as before. However, this time, Sumo heard some syllables clearly. Is there a light boat rising at the immeasurable ferry? Cultivate immortality, ask the heavenly Tao. Ridiculous. On the wind wheel, in the lotus dream. Is there really a limit to the tribulations? She was speechless. Do you know, where's the cause and effect? That was an incomplete song. On the wind wheel, in the lotus dream? What did that mean? In the sky curtain, a huge and long shadow slowly swept across the sky, like a whale crossing the sea, and the clouds hanging in the sky. This time, Sumo saw clearly that it was really an ancient ship that swept across the sky, a modeled ancient ship. That was the ship that was anchored at the top of the mountain. In fact, that ship was just passing by this world in the space-time of the infinite world. Wu and I Ba. The ancient song that resounded between heaven and earth was still mixed with notes that Sumo couldn't understand. Sumo felt even more uneasy and irritated. Blue clothes, purple skirt. They were 2 figures holding hands. At that moment, Sumo's heart thumped uneasily again, and he even felt like he was going crazy. Every sound in the sky curtain was like a heavy hammer beating on his heart. Boom, 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 dong, dong, dong. Sumo felt that there was another thunderstorm in her mind. A crazy voice kept shouting and asking, "Who are you? Who am I? Who are you? Who am I?" It reverberated ceaselessly. Sumo held her head with her hands, feeling dizzy. At the same time, the sky curtain above the ancient temple seemed to have completed its mission and was slowly dispersing. Chapter 155. Who are you? Who am I? The loud voice echoed endlessly. In a trance, there was a voice in Sumo's mind that kept asking questions. That made Sumo feel like he was in an illusion, like he was in a dream. He couldn't explain it clearly. At this time, Sumo felt that he was surrounded by white light. That kind of white light with a holy aura. Sumo seemed to have entered another world. He was wearing a white robe, elegant and elegant, standing barefoot on the shore of the sea. He didn't know where his broken bamboo pole had gone. In the distance, there was a vast expanse of smoke, and there were vaguely mountains. Nearby, the lingering fragrance was curling up, and lotus flowers were growing. The sea, the lotus flowers. Unconsciously, Sumo raised his foot and stepped into the sea. With just one step, he stepped onto a lotus flower. Sumo didn't expect that he could actually walk on a lotus flower. That feeling was like a king descending to the world, looking down on the world. Sumo continued forward. He seemed to want to go to the side of White Mountain. Every step he took, he was on a lotus flower. And every lotus flower could withstand everything he did, unharmed. One flower, one world, one thought, one reincarnation. With one step Sumo took, he seemed to walk through a world. Time flowed like water, and the story that flowed through the ages seemed to be contained in the blooming and falling of every lotus flower. The speed was too fast. Sumo couldn't see the story in every lotus flower at all. Even when he stepped on the second lotus flower, he would forget the story of the first lotus flower. Memories, are they really always covered? Sometimes that was a kind of sorrow. However, at this time, Sumo didn't feel sorrow, only a trance. Life and death illusions, prosperity and decline. Everything was accompanied by the blooming and falling of the lotus flower. Above the sea, the waves rose and fell. One step, one lotus, an instant of eternity. Sumo didn't know how long he had walked. How many lotus flowers had he walked past? How many worlds had he seen? And suddenly, Sumo stopped in his tracks. On a lotus flower, Sumo, dressed as white as snow, looked ahead, because in front there was a huge whirlpool. Within a radius of 100 miles, there were no lotus flowers, only the sea whirlpool, one after another. The lotus flowers were swaying gently 100 miles away from it. At the center of the vortex was a black hole that extended for several kilometers. It was incomparably deep, causing one to feel intimidated just by looking at it. It was like an abyss of reincarnation. Sumo saw lotuses being drawn into the sea, straight into the black hole. Before entering the black hole, those lotuses would emit the most resplendent light, like the last splendor of a shooting star. Unfortunately, everything would eventually return to a black hole, just like how everything would eventually die. Is at the center of the ocean, or the eye of the sea? Sumo asked in her heart. However, no one answered this question. Of course, he couldn't answer it himself. The wind blew a corner. Sumo stood on top of the lotus. Look, seawater is gathering in all directions, all pouring into that huge whirlpool. Occasionally, there would be lotus flowers that would vanquish all life and death. Apart from that, there seemed to be nothing else in this world. White light, warm. The fragrance spread everywhere. However, Sumo felt that everything was empty. There was a mountain in the distance, but it was out of reach. Sumo, who was dressed in white, was no longer walking on the lotus. Instead, she was staring blankly at all of this. He didn't know where to go. There seemed to be a faint anticipation and waiting in his heart. Do you know who you are? Where did you come from? Where are you going? At this moment, an old voice suddenly came from above the sea. Sumo looked around blankly. However, he saw nothing. At this moment, in the center of the whirlpool, a small boat appeared. It was a white, lonely boat that seemed to be made of wood. The boat was no more than 3 feet wide and no more than 10 feet long. It looked like a canoe. The canoe was propped up. The canoe was covered with a light gauze curtain. The light gauze curtain swayed gently in the wind. There were no oars or boatmen on the boat. There was a faint smell like nothingness. There was a faint light coming from the canoe. There seemed to be a lamp hanging inside. The shadow of the lamp swayed and rippled in the sea. The small boat floated like an immortal ship. In fact, it was not floating on the sea. but about 3 feet above the sea in the void. However, the sea and the sky were one, and the waves were rising. The small boat seemed to be on the sea. The black hole whirlpool in the middle of the sea should have thousands of suction force. However, the small boat was at the entrance of the black hole, swimming as if it was not disturbed. The curtain of the boat gently swayed, like a curtain of immortals. At the moment when the curtain of the boat was gently lifted, Sumo vaguely saw a thin old man in a white robe lying flat on the boat. It was a very ordinary old man, with his eyes closed peacefully. It seemed to be a corpse, but also seemed to be asleep. Sumo's divine sense was completely ineffective here. He couldn't see what was going on. Could it be that the old voice came from a small boat? Was it the old man in white who was asking questions? Who was the old man in white? Sumo's heart was full of questions. Do you know who you are? Where did you come from? Where are you going? As if to answer Sumo's question. In the void, the question came again. The voice seemed to come from the small boat, but also did not seem to come from the small boat. Sumo couldn't distinguish it and was at a loss again. I am me. My name is Sumo. Sumo was a little stunned. He could only say this because this was indeed an answer without a mistake. Sigh. The old voice let out a long sigh, filled with endless sorrow and helplessness. At that moment, Sumo's heart ached. The lucky chance had not come. Whoosh, looking again, the sea suddenly rose up with huge waves. The whirlpool of the sea began to expand infinitely. Who are you? Sumo also wanted to ask. But in an instant, the world in front of him suddenly changed. In the dark and deep black hole, endless starlight suddenly lit up. Bit by bit, ray by ray, round by round, it was like the beginning of the vast universe. One ancient star after another lit up. In an instant, the starlight was dazzling. Looking again, the small boat slowly turned in the middle of the sea. Layer after layer of waves surged up from the sea, like a 9-tiered lotus throne or a 9-tiered pagoda. It was thousands of feet high. Sumo needed to look up. Fragrance. Zimo smelled the rich fragrance that filled the sky. The entire space was filled with 9-colored brilliance, mysterious and blurred, extremely magical. All the lotus flowers swayed slightly. Sumo was dumbfounded. Everything was like a dream. It was so unreal. But suddenly, the small boat disappeared. Then, the starlight was extinguished. All the lotus flowers were swept into the great waves and then fell into the endless abyss. In an instant, Sumo felt an infinite suction force sucking him in. Sumo couldn't help but plunge into the black hole, although he was resisting everything with all his strength. But it was like a nightmare. Sumo didn't have any strength at all. Woo. Sumo only felt his vision go dark, as if he had stepped on air and fell from a high mountain. The evil wind howled, falling straight into hell. In the ancient temple, Sumo suddenly woke up. His forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his back was drenched. He looked around blankly. The ancient temple was still there. Chapter 156. He woke up with a start. It was just a dream. Phew. Standing up, Sumo let out a long breath of turbid air. He adjusted his breathing deeply and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Then he looked left and right. On the left, there was a dead tree with a heavy bell hanging high. On the right, there was a green tree with drooping branches like an umbrella. The ancient cauldron was still the same ancient cauldron. The ancient houses were still the same 2 ancient houses. Everything seemed to have not changed. But under the influence of the image in the sky, Sumo had a strange dream. Sumo raised his eyebrows, but there was a slight change in his state of mind, because the image in the sky and the dream just now were deeply engraved in Sumo's mind. Sumo did not believe that all this was a coincidence or an accident. There must be a connection between everything that happened. But Sumo had not figured it out yet. Again, Sumo took a deep breath. He had seen too many strange things in the ancient temple. Sumo knew that at this time, he had to calm down as soon as possible. Otherwise, it was very likely that he would lose his correct judgment. Sumo looked at the 2 doors and windows of the ancient house again. After hesitating for a moment, Sumo still held the bamboo pole and walked along the broken bluestone path to the ancient house. After all, he still wanted to open the door of the ancient house and have a look. But this time, Sumo was blocked. When Sumo was about 7 feet away from the door of the ancient house, suddenly, the entire ancient house emitted a strange purple light. The purple light was very gentle, but it made it difficult for Sumo to move. Finally arrived at a place that I can't enter? Sumo smiled bitterly. He thought of a small boat and the old man in his dream. The opportunity had not come. Sumo could not enter the real ancient temple. Nothing could be forced. Sumo understood that greed was bound to bring disaster. So, almost without hesitation, Sumo directly retreated. In fact, Sumo didn't even touch anything else in the ancient temple. He believed that all the arrangements in the ancient temple had their own purpose and meaning and could not be touched carelessly. Those 2 trees might represent one life and one death. Sumo believed that if there was a fortuitous encounter, the 2 houses would not reject him. In particular, Sumo recalled the problem in the dream. Who are you? Sumo's answer in the dream did not seem to be the answer that the old voice wanted. Who am I? Sumo asked herself in self-mockery. Am I not Sumo? Hee. Thus, Sumo left the ancient temple. Creak, creak, the door of the ancient temple closed automatically. Sumo walked down the stairs, but there were no 6 rays of light on the 3rd step. After going down the stairs, Sumo looked at the ancient temple again and then bowed 3 times. Although he did not fully discover the secret of the ancient temple, he was in awe of it. This was not an ordinary place. Sumo was able to enter and exit safely and see many mirror images, which was already a great fortune. Woo, woo. As Sumo bowed 3 times, the many white skeletons under the ancient temple seemed to be whimpering, as if they were lamenting. However, the ancient temple flashed with a purple light, and their voices were instantly suppressed. However, when she looked at the 2 ancient doors, she could faintly see 4 rows of words. It was 4 rows of large purple words. The words were simple and unadorned, and seemed to be from a very long time ago. Sumo could barely recognize them. From right to left, it read, Whitebone Village outside the Windwheel Temple. The monarch died, and his subjects were not seen for 10,000 years. The world of mortals covers the eyes of the heavens, and the sea of fragrant lotus helps the fated. The 4 sentences appeared on the 2 old doors, and stayed for a few breaths of time, and then gradually disappeared. At the same time, 3 green ancient words appeared on the lintel of the door, Windwheel Temple. Moreover, those 3 words were not hidden anymore. Sumo's arrival seemed to have revived something in the ancient temple. At that moment, Sumo was extremely shocked. Windwheel Temple? Windwheel Temple? Could it be another coincidence? Red dust. These 2 words had appeared in Sumo's cognition several times. However, Sumo still could not understand the cause and effect of all this. Apart from these, nothing else happened. Sumo could not understand it, and could only sigh. Sumo could not understand the 4 lines of the poem. However, he took out the red dust ancient fan. Swish, Sumo shook the ancient fan and directly opened it. The ancient fan in his hand was warm and slightly cool. Suddenly, Sumo realized the material of the ancient fan. Human bones. The feeling of the red dust ancient fan was actually the same as when Sumo touched the last 18 white skeletons that he had not absorbed. That was definitely the immortal bone. No wonder Sumo could not see through it. If the fan was made of human bones, then what was inside the fan? Sumo's heart skipped a beat. Human skin. Sumo gently stroked the fan and couldn't help but take a deep breath. The mortal dust ancient fan made of human bones and human skin. Of course, those were definitely not ordinary human bones or skin. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to call them immortal bones or immortal skin. Who made this ancient fan? Sumo looked at the strange rocks and wood on the fan and the white skeleton sitting cross-legged. She frowned slightly. At this moment, he realized that the white skeleton sitting cross-legged was exactly the same as his immortal root. However, there was no 9 Dragons immortal platform on the white bone. Sumo flipped the ancient fan, and the back was still pitch black. However, the original, densely packed, white ancient characters had already changed. As it turned out, those white ancient characters were the incantations for the unwithering art's unwithering energy. But now it was the unwithered bones technique. That was because Sumo's undying chi had already reached the advanced stage, and the two words that had disappeared before the spell's title actually appeared. White bones. White bone unwithering art. That was the full name of the mental cultivation method that Sumo was practicing. The pendant on the fan handle was still blood red and translucent. It felt warm and smooth like jade. However, that pendant was definitely not made of jade. Sumo could see the material of the fan, but she still couldn't see the origin of a jade pendant. Sumo gently stroked the pendant again. The two ancient characters' mortal dust gradually emerged from the pendant. It was very magical. Sumo could only smile bitterly again. This was really a strange fan. And at the moment when Sumo took out the mortal dust ancient fan, Sumo suddenly felt that there was something moving around. Sumo looked up and glanced around. He suddenly found that the arms of the remaining 18 skeletons had been unknowingly put down. Perhaps they had completed their mission. And at the moment when a mortal dust ancient fan was opened, the bodies of those white skeletons flashed with a red light. Sumo was very surprised. He took the mortal dust ancient fan and went straight to the 81st skeleton. Sumo noticed that every time he opened and closed the ancient fan, a red light flashed across the bodies of those immortal skeletons. Resonance? Sumo's heart skipped a beat. Then he suddenly remembered that he had practiced the skeleton technique in the undying chi. That was like the incantation to control skeletons, but Sumo had never had the chance to, nor could he find a suitable skeleton. That incantation had become useless. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.